I was thinking about it. I'm an introvert. Like I'm a painfully and always have been a painfully sort of interior person.
You can change that as much as you want. If you packed everything up, like cut the internet off and moved to a new town, like who would you be there? If you wake up every day, you have a capacity to be great.
Ask you something. Is the next 30 seconds guaranteed?
Yeah, never.
Never.
You have to answer every day when you go to bed. Were you a good person? Were you kind? Did you care about others? Or were you selfish and only thought about what you wanted?
Continuing to ask questions in like a kind or positive way.
If I can create a spot where people can come together.
Stay off the internet, stop researching, because all you're going to do is get in your head.
I did what everybody does when they're about to die, I started praying.
This might be my last fork in the road.
Get busy living or get busy dying.
Exactly. Welcome to our journey,
Where open dialogue and curiosity are the only requirements.
whether it be serious or lighthearted,
Music, heroing stories,
aliens.
or politics or comedic debauchery.
We attempt to peel the layers back and connect together in a way that's genuine and honest.
Without any script or idea what the hell is going to happen.
This is organic, curious, human interaction.
We thank you for joining us and ask if you enjoy the show, please do all the things that social media requires for its more ridiculous algorithms.
The like button, follow, subscribe, comment, and review.
And although we may have a disdain for algorithms, it's how the internets work.
But if you have as much disdain for them as we do, you can visit the website, chroniccuriosity.com. The link is in the description. You can find all of our stuff there.
And the store, Tony, which you can pick yourself up some fantastically curious merchandise.
Welcome to Chronic Curiosity.
And here we go.
I'm patient.
Firewood.
I'm here to. I just want to play point guard. I'm just gonna pass.
Well, whatever works, right?
Set you guys up.
Oh, I talk enough as it is. We just the last 2 weeks it's just been just us. So, happy to have you on.
Oh, yeah. I apologize. I had to. What did I have to do? I was a mess with my schedule, and I had to
It was
schedule
a
you guys a couple weeks ago.
crazy flight at like 5 or something.
Oh yeah, where'd you go?
Oh, I'm on the road like probably 3 weeks a month. So like I was in Dallas. Oh, closer. I was in Dallas last week, and then
Going through the big D, and it actually was Dallas.
yeah, I was in Dallas. I'm in Detroit next week, and then back to Dallas the following week, and then I'm in Reno, and then Mexico, and then Brazil,
Brazil.
and then May.
I feel like you're the real life Johnny Cash song.
So I gotta get
I've been
I gotta get a vaccine
everywhere.
now. I gotta get poked so I can.
Are they making you for? You gotta have the passport card, or it's just something?
Because you're going to Brazil. And you're
I'm
like,
just worried that like I'm gonna spend like $2,000 on a plane ticket, and the week before they'll be like, "You need a vaccine to get in." So I already had COVID, but yeah, I don't know. I don't trust Brazil. How would change the rules?
How was that? How was COVID? How did that treat you?
It was rough. I talked to Tony about it a while. Not like hospitalization wise, but like just the energy dump for like about 2 weeks. Like I couldn't do anything, and that's a part of a longer story. But yeah, it was not great. I never like had respiratory issues. It was just extreme fatigue, in a way like I have hard time explaining to people. It was felt like I like did an Ironman when I slept, and I woke up right after it every day and just couldn't move, and like I'd take a shower and take a nap. And it was
Dude, that's bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
Brutal.
So yeah.
Any residual effects from it? Or are you pretty much 100%?
I mean, I don't know if I'm ever 100% on anything, but no, I mean I never lost like. I never.
I'm not sure. Yeah, was that a joke?
I operated about 65% generally. No, I had. I never lost like taste or smell. I lost my appetite for a while, which was a great byproduct of it. But no, I'm pretty good now.
You never lost the smell and taste?
No smell or taste, just
lucky.
appetite and fatigue, and then yeah, it was really it. I just had like low grade fever that would break every day, but it was not great. Staying in your room for 2 weeks is like, don't ever go to prison, because I was ready to like.
Yeah.
Start writing on the walls by the end of 2 weeks.
Your wife came up and you'd carved a shank. She's like, Jesus, Matt, what are you
She
doing
put
there?
like food on the ground outside the door and walk away. And I have to bring my food and eat it on a recliner in our room. And then, yeah, so I watched like every QAnon documentary.
You got real bored.
Anything that was like aliens or QAnon, I was like, all right, let's
you have to put them in the same category.
I got 2 weeks to just get real weird in this room by myself. So I watched a lot of that weird stuff. And
Yeah, I feel like we didn't do an introduction, did we?
No, I mean, it's, yeah. We
should probably do an introduction.
It's Matt Shanlian. Yeah.
There we go.
Here,
There we go.
Here, he's here. And he travels a lot and he's had COVID.
Yeah.
Look at that. Introduction.
End of story.
Call up. Call up. Oh, man.
Well, I know obviously how I know of you.
Yeah.
But how did you guys, because I know, like, he started talking about this Matt Shanlian. I was like, I know Matt.
Yeah.
Like,
Probably through Phil.
Well, it was that one time, like, I was
Like,
driving
put
on the
that
road.
a little
and
closer,
Tony,
too.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I was driving the
you
road.
can move it too, so you can swing it around however you want. You can.
I was driving on the road and Tony was like 30 feet up in a tree and just punching the tree down. And I was like, who's this guy?
with his bare hands. Yeah.
So I pulled over and I was like, you want to go to lunch? No. We have a mutual friend and Phil. And it's so funny because Tony is just like a unique guy, of course. And so I met him over at Phil's house. We like to hang on the back porch and pretty much do a podcast without mics. And so then he came over to my house one time and I was like, oh, this new guy, my friend Tony's coming over to my wife. And she's like, oh, yeah, who is that? And I was like, oh, he's a friend. He's fine. I was like, he looks like a lumberjack. Don't be scared. And he came in my door and he was like, hello. And my wife's like, and ran in the room. I was like, he's fine. He's very gentle.
goodness.
But like, so she's like, who are you hanging out with? And I'm like, I'll say, Phil and Tony. And she'd be like, Tony. And I'm like, yeah, that Tony. Deep voice Tony. So yeah, that's how we connected. And then, just been buddies and we like the brown stuff. And that's kind of how we connected initially. And
Yep. And I always like to hear what you're reading too, because there's not a lot of people that read as much as you do, which I respect.
I try to. Well, I mean, if you count books on tape, when you're in an airplane a lot, there's only so many times you can listen to like Run the Jewels.
I think you can count books on tape.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, one of the reasons how this thing got started was like, I was so used to listening to stuff because I drove around a lot. And it was like, man, you can only listen to the radio so much. Mm-hmm. And I have like a specific music taste and I can only listen and I love music, but I can only listen to so much music over and over and over again. And now it's like I'm listening to podcasts at like 1.5 times the speed, just like sucking as much.
I still can't do that. I've heard a lot of people do like 1.5 and it feels like I'm on like coffee. I feel like it makes me like move fast.
You're listening to Alvin and the Chipmunks, or
Well, it all depends on who you're listening to, because some people I can't do that.
if it's Lex Friedman, like you said,
Yeah,
you
but
listen at 5x speed.
Yeah, do you know who Lex Friedman is?
I listened to a podcast he was on, but I haven't listened to his personal one. It was, of course, with Rogan. I think everybody listens to Joe Rogan's
But yeah, he's a very monotone, slow speaking kind of guy. So it's like, I have to listen to him at 1.5 times because it sounds like a normal person talking.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I just am generally, I think, also through line with Tony, like generally just a curious person. And so even if it's not something that is anything I know about or am good at, I like to listen about it. So like, I'm just a fan of really smart people, or at least people that sound smart, that are able to, convince me they're smart. So yeah, so a lot of podcasts, just different stuff. My wife is always telling me like, why are you reading that book? Or I'll try to explain a podcast that I listen to about like anything, like Area like 54, and she'll be like, I don't care about this at all. And I'm like, but no, like, who's that guy? Bob Lazar.
Yeah, Bob Lazar.
Oh no! Yes, we're gonna start.
So, I read his, or I listened to his book or whatever, and I was like trying to explain it to my wife, and she's like, I'm out. No thanks. And so.
You got Fred. He likes weirder stuff than I do.
Yeah, I know all about Bob Lazar.
Yeah, he does.
I know all types of
ancient
weird stuff.
aliens and
yeah. Not so much the show. The show it does a disservice to the whole alien and Egypt thought, but yeah, I mean weird stuff. Just I think there's a lot of underlying things that it's not the. I think a lot of people hear that like surface level, like Bob Lazar talking about stuff, and it's like, well, I get it. It seems far-fetched, but think about all the things that it could mean and the things that like it does mean if the government's hiding stuff or this, that, all these different ideas and technologies, and that's the fun stuff.
Yeah, for me, it's I like people who are really convinced in what they think, even if it's crazy. I'm just all in on anybody who's like, the world's flat. Like, I'm listening to that. Like, I want to hear that because it's just
Flat earthers.
Oh man, it's just it's great. I love like somebody that's so convinced on something like that, and it's just like, well, at least you're committed. Like, I'll give you that.
You have a
like,
conviction,
yeah.
right?
So,
I saw a good one. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. It was a I can't remember if it was on Amazon. It was a show, but they were talking. This lady made it. She said that she had been constantly visited by aliens or other dimensional beings her entire childhood. But they went on like this whole thing about they kind of connected aliens and like different dimensions, like the kind of like the multiverse theories and different things. But then at the end, some of the people that they've been talking to let you know that they're alien hybrids. I'm like, oh,
I'm in.
Now this is interesting. Like,
I'm down. Yeah.
They were like taking up the spaceships and they were like grown in like test tube, like mixed with like alien like DNA. And I'm like, okay. Now you got me.
I always joke like if I was ever like a target of an FBI investigation and they just looked at like my Netflix queue, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, this guy did it. This guy's totally wrong." And it's like because anything that is just, I just love crazy people. I don't know why. Like if you're a serial killer or like that kind of stuff, you know, I watched something this week on Netflix that was like about this art heist that was like the biggest art heist. I
saw that. It was like $10 million or something, or
it was way more than that.
Oh, okay.
No, it was like,
was it
500 million?
Was that the one where they left the?
Was that Ocean's 12?
It was
yeah.
It was like this crazy convoluted thing. It was really interesting, and I guess whatever spoilers, but like there was this art gallery in Boston, and it got broken into, and they couldn't figure out who did it, and then it was like mob related because the mob figured out like if you had like a Rembrandt and then you'd stole it and then you got arrested, you could use that as a bargaining chip to get out of jail. So all of these mob guys all of a sudden started like trying to get all these really rare paintings, would steal them. So there was all these, so they would basically have goons come and steal these paintings, which in the one in Boston, these guys were so dumb. For half the paintings, they like broke the glass and like cut the painting out and was like, just grab the whole thing. And then everybody gets killed that was involved in it, except for like the boss. And then he gets pinched for racketeering. And it's like, how do you get out? It's like, well, he
all these
he
rare
had $200
artifacts.
million of rare
shit.
art in his basement and he was like, I'll give him back. And so it was really interesting, the caper of it all. And then you find out it's like these like high school dropouts that dressed up like cops and just ran into an art gallery for 45 minutes and stole like $500 million worth of art.
That's crazy.
And then they all
And
were
all
found
got
in their
killed for
trunk.
it.
Yeah.
They all got a FedEx package a month later.
It was most of them were found in their trunk. Like after like one day, he said it was in his trunk for like 30 or 40 days.
Ooh.
So he was like melted by the time we found him. So anyway, but yeah.
You remember that movie Thomas Crown Affair?
I've never seen that one.
Never saw that one? Did you see that one? Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, that's a sweet movie.
That's
He's
old. We'd have been like kids when that came out, right? Like
yeah, I think so.
Late 90s. Maybe?
He's like an art thief. It's cool.
There is something different. I had not an epiphany because it wasn't new knowledge, but it really hit me just recently. I always thought people buying like ridiculous art was the stupidest fucking thing. I was like, or like somebody like hanging a car like on their ceiling, like these rare cars. I guess I got the rare car thing, like a Jay Leno, like, cause all right, you just love cars. Okay, I get it.
And you have too much money,
right? And I got to spend it on something. Yeah. Like that's always thought it was. But then it hit me that all these rich people, it's just like any other type of investment, like real estate, or if it's something that can hold its value. All right, well, it's diversification. A lot of these people buy high-end art just so they have somewhere to put their money.
It's even worse. It's really what it is. It's cryptocurrency. It's a closed-end investment. Those guys aren't making any more paintings, and so there is no more inventory. So
not just
the value continues to trade off of itself, and that's why when somebody's like, "Oh, my grandma had this sketch in their basement and ended up being a Picasso. It's like $13 million for like, because there's just no more of that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's to be like, you know, like a cryptocurrency all of a sudden being like, hey, we're going to release 10% more. The buying frenzy that would go in place there would be unbelievable. And so that's why like art is like, I don't want to be philosophical, but like it's one of the first like actual cryptocurrencies because it's closed end to end. And same with fine cars. Like, hey, they only made 37 of these Porsches. If you own one and over time that number dwindles, then it's, you set your price. But that's wealth at a level that I don't think I'll ever touch. Maybe you guys.
Not me.
Yeah. I'm out. I'm way out.
Not me.
There's no way. Well, I think you even said cryptocurrencies in a sense, but there's some, like, we talk about cryptocurrencies, not often, but we have. Like some places, like you look at like XRP, if anyone's a crypto nerd out there, like they're just making this stuff up. And it's like, why does this have value? And then people would lump it all into cryptocurrencies and all these things. Like there's so much variety there that people don't get. But yeah, when you have something that no one else has and it's not going to get made anymore.
Don't they call that one the Joker?
Yeah, do they?
Yeah, I think that's the nickname
Is
for it.
that the new name for it? I stopped paying attention to it.
No, I know you. I know you hate it. When I said XRP, I'd always see your lip. You're just like,
well, that's like NFTs. You guys were talking about.
Yeah, I was just gonna say art NFTs.
tokens.
Yeah,
well, NFTs are just a completely fabricated. I mean, that.
hey, let me sell this tweet for $2.5 million.
Well,
wasn't that what Jack Dorsey was? It 2.5 million.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, even the was it NBA created an NFT?
Yeah.
And it's literally like a GIF of a highlight. So it's like LeBron dunking. But they only sold a certain amount of them. They sold out in minutes. And now they've created this market, which, you know, if you break down like an NFT is only sold on a specific platform. So that platform has an interest in that NFT growing.
Yeah.
And so it's all, I mean, when you talk about like tech bubble stuff from the 90s, it's like on steroids. I mean, it's great now and maybe it'll never blow, but the moment it blows, everybody's collateral damage. And, you know, it's not like, what is it? What's his name? It was a famous financial advisor in the 80s. His last name was Savage. It's not Fred Savage.
I was going to say Gordon Gecko?
Yeah. I can't think of his first name, but his big philosophy was like return of investment, not return on investment. Like, what's your exit strategy? Because you can show growth and, you know, stock manipulation all the way through, but like when you get out, how do you get out? What's your taxation in that moment? And that's, I think, the thing with crypto. I mean, there's people who are just, you know, positive thinkers. I can't think of the right term, but they're so positive on it. They're just like, it's just going to be worth $1 million, a Bitcoin or whatever. And how do you get out though? Like, there's no real great exit strategy, especially with blockchain. And so, unless their big gamble is right, like, we turn that into the main currency, and then they've cornered the market on it. But there's a lot to be done before we can have a global currency like that that's digital.
No, for sure. Well, I think that's one thing that I've always kind of gone by when it comes to that is, you know, it's great that you own this new great thing, like an NFT.
Yeah.
You know, I understand the concept behind an NFT, and it's a neat concept. Mm-hmm. It is. As long as you can create something that somebody's going to want for a long time, like a Picasso in an NFT, which is, I don't quite see how that's going to work yet. But I think in the cryptocurrency world, to me, I think Bitcoin's different than anything else for multiple different reasons. But I'm okay with someone being really optimistic or, about something, but tell me why. Like, tell me the end game to this thing. You know what I mean? A lot of people, it's just, well, this is the new thing. It's cryptocurrency. It's going to be cash. Well, like, I don't think Bitcoin's ever going to be cash. Like, it's never going to be a currency.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of taking that place of like gold in a sense. And it has the capabilities of being transferred in that it's a decentralization. No one controls it, which is my favorite part of it.
Yeah.
And there's no fucking greedy ass investment company or somebody, like you said, platform that has a vested interest in it. It's just,
I got to get Boris on. Yeah. He's that computer programmer because he's like, somebody's controlling it.
What do you think about like now, like the value of it? And there are people like, hey, it's going to be worth $1 million. The price is going to be at $1 million at some point, and it's in the high $100,000 last couple weeks, and I looked. You got to remember.
Hold on. The Bitcoin is?
I think it's for
No.
60
for one. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's right around 59 or 60,000.
Oh, okay. Was it at 180 at one point?
No. It never went that high. The highest it ever went was like 61,700 and something.
Yeah,
I think.
it was like 61.9 or something like that.
Oh, I apologize.
No, you're
But
good.
the upside of it is like the people that own Bitcoin. It operates still like a stock where it's like if Coca-Cola wants people to invest more in their stock price to go up, they announce
Oh yeah.
projected earnings or projected value. And so like right now you look at like people that got into Bitcoin right now are the geniuses, but now it's like, okay, if it's at 60,000, what's my upside value? If I got it at 100 and now it's worth 60, okay, now I'm at 6,000% of my investment. If it's at 60,000, for me to make 6,000% of that, the value is, I'm not quick math. What's that? 3.2 billion per coin?
Yeah.
I mean, the upside swing, I mean, in dollars is a lot, but the speculation side has already happened. If it goes up to $1 million, that's still only what, 3 times? So that's a 300% when you're looking at people that got in 2007 or whenever it came out for pennies on it. So that's the thing, is it behooves people who have Bitcoin to talk about how much Bitcoin is going to be worth, because that increases investor pool and activity. But the people that got in early are going to get rich. It's just like the GameStop thing. The people that bought at $2 and got out at 300 were great, but the people that bought at $60 and now it's at like 130, they've doubled their money. That's great, but they're not going to get rich off of it. And
Right.
So it's all about the market's timing. Like anybody says, it's just it's really interesting though where that's going to go, because I mean right now, like Bitcoin is money. You can buy it in, I think, was it California, Nevada? You can use Bitcoin. Like you can buy a car with Bitcoin. You can walk in
buy
there
a
and
Tesla.
Yeah, well, he's tied to it so much now.
Yeah.
Was it 10% or 5% invested in Bitcoin?
1.5
But that was just a
billion.
recent. That was just a recent interaction too.
But they're continually, like, you're going to see more progressive areas start figuring out, like your Amazons, your Whole Foods and stuff, who's owned by Amazon. But my thing I always go back to is when people say like, oh, Bitcoin is this, unencryptable place. My speculation is like, okay, well, you give scammers or, those kind of people like, hey, you can't break this. Now you just gave them the goal. And we'll see because I mean, Bezos's dick was on the internet too. So he owns Amazon.
Well,
so he obviously wasn't smart enough to keep his thing off the internet. So I mean, somebody's going to be able to break into it at some point.
Well, so I understand the skepticism from people. And I've just personally done my own really research on whatever. So I look at it from a different aspect of, I don't see it as just like a stock. I don't see it as a currency because it's too slow to be a currency, a cryptocurrency in the future. But I do think that, I guess it kind of boils down to this, what is monetary value? What's money?
Oh yeah.
It's whatever people believe it to be. Right now, like we talked about, it used to be gold to back the dollar. Now it's backing the dollar. Powell, federal, the Chair Powell.
Emotion, momentum.
Yeah, it's just printing it. They're just printing it off.
Yeah,
So like,
what was your statistic? 30% of all dollars have been printed in the last year.
yeah,
I was like,
30% of all the
my
dollars in
gosh.
existence have been created and printed in the last year. So I look at that. I look at where's the fiat system going, where is our currency system going, and it just seems like a utility that is safer than anything else at this point. Yeah. Maybe with quantum computers, and you find maybe, but I think we're a little far off from quantum computers being able to hack a system like that. So I think if you see adoption internationally, I think it could go to $1 million. And if my dollar goes down, inflation goes way up, then maybe that 2, 3, 5x return is a lot better than I would have had in the stock market.
I'm less of a conspiracy theorist on money, currency, especially in the United States, just because of, and maybe I'm just too much of a, ignorant of it, but the idea that the American dollar would disintegrate would have a reverberation across the world, probably as big as a nuclear bomb. And so there's vested interest globally that even though, like, that's why it doesn't make sense right now. Like, that's why when we look at economic markers and then the stock price don't match up, because as much as we want to say that the dollar isn't the global currency, it is. And so as much as China's invested in our country, as much as all these other wealthy areas of the world have invested in the United States, for it to go down completely, like the whole ship to burn down, that's a restart of a global economy that even more than China, because China is a goods market more than a currency market. And so like that would be like China being like, we're not cutting any more trees down, find your lumber somewhere else. Like that would be a global distraction, and the cost of wood would go to be the cost of diamonds. And so because they don't have the economic standards and environmental standards that we have here. But like, you know, you look at gold, you know, back in the 40s, 30s and 40s during the Great Depression and World War II, that was what FDR did. He, like, the price of gold was managed by the president. So there's, you know, stories upon stories where he would come in and be like, what's the price of gold? He'd be like, 4 cents more. Why? We need more value in our dollar.
Right.
We need to spend more on the war. And so gold was the manipulated currency at an even more rudimentary place than our dollar is. And so when people say like, I want to go back to the gold standard, it's like, great. First off, there's not enough of it. And also that's manipulated, just like, it's like a utopian. It's just like, I want to go back to when there was only 3 TV channels. Like, that's not happening.
Right.
And it can't happen. And so you just got to kind of continually evolve. But at this stage, our economy is not going to, I don't think it's just going to ever return to reality. It's so far gone. I mean, what are we? How many trillions of dollars are we in debt?
Well, who even knows at this point?
I think we're
and growing. And I mean, it grew during
27
Trump,
or something like that.
Usually, a Republican House is balancing the budget, smaller government, and it grew during Trump's time and before the pandemic. And so we're just in the spending absolute cycle, and you see consumer debt is at an all-time high. So the stock market's up in the last 7 years, almost 100%. And the average American family is still in the same amount of debt they were before it went up. So that value is hypothetical until you exit, and people aren't living with budget in mind. And so that keeps us in a really tedious place financially as people, but also like tied to our government to make sure that our stock market keeps going up. And if our stock market plummets 10,000 points and unemployment goes up 6%, it looks, a lot of our country starts looking like West Virginia real quick.
All right. So a couple of things you just said. So that's kind of circling to the Bitcoin thing, is some of those things why I like the idea of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. It's completely, as we know of right now, completely decentralized. Nobody controls it. Yeah. Nobody can manipulate it. As far as at a core level, like Jerome Powell printing off money, or, you know, the gold reserves. So I like that idea because it kind of, maybe it's revolutionary, but like kind of gives power back to the people. You know, maybe it's kind of romance, but at this point, that's what we know about it. Mm-hmm. And then the second thought is, okay, so where do we go from here? You know, monetary systems used to be seashells and, you know, coins with Caesar's face on it. And then all of a sudden, you know, fiat currencies that exist now come into play, and they get constantly abused, you know, after we went through gold and everything else. And I agree with you. I don't think the dollar's going anywhere anytime soon at all. But I guess that's my thought is, okay, what's next? Because we're continuing to move down this road of innovation and technology and finding that next thing. It's going to something's got to happen, because like you said, fiat currency is just a figment of our, you know, feel good imagination of what the government just, And, so it kind of ties in the comment you had about the stock market. It keeps on going up, keeps on going up. It's going to keep on going up because it has to, because gold's not doing so great right now. Mm-hmm. The, you know, U.S. Treasury bonds are not doing so great. Like, no one trusts essentially the government or gold, so they have to keep putting their money in stocks to actually make some kind of return, because you put $10,000 onto your mattress, 10 years ain't gonna be, I mean, if we keep going like it's going, it ain't gonna be worth shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I want to say the biggest owner of Bitcoin is the United States, correct?
We don't know. As far as actual government, I don't think it's not. That hasn't
Maybe
been
not the
released.
single owner, but I believe that they're the biggest. Them and China.
I was gonna say China's got to be huge.
Yeah, but that's So you read that tea leaf.
And
So
if we
they're
own
not-
it, so that just goes. That means China owns it, right? Since they own us.
Yeah. Well, it was Peter Thiel even came out and if you read between the lines, he said look, China's going to be using this, we should too.
Yeah. The problem with China is.
Is it just one?
Let me talk for 45 minutes. Let me go off. You guys can go take a break. No, multiple problems with China. The other problem is China owes us a pretty close amount to what we owe them, and so it's kind of like we both have a gun to each other's head. And so what is that? Who made a list?
These are just the people. This isn't necessarily government. The list of most countries that have the most Bitcoin. I love how they do that. Hodlers instead of holders. Yeah. So United States, Romania, and China. And then Spain, Japan.
Really? Romania?
The gymnasts got in early.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's just the individual holders. I don't think we know what governments hold at this point. So, but yeah, sorry.
Man, it could be like the Disney thing where a bunch of government operatives own it personally, but it's really... You don't know, man. That deep state's deep.
Disney. Yeah, putting dicks on Little Mermaid covers. Just saying I saw it with my own two eyes.
He has pulled it up multiple times for me to see.
Yeah.
That right there is a golden dick, he says.
It
Look
is.
at
Well, I
it.
always expected to have the Mandela effect. And then at one point you it's just not there. And I'm like, no, I know there was a dick on that cover. I know it.
Yeah, it's just... the economy and the problem is ultimately globally is there isn't an economy that's doing great. We're just doing less bad than them. And so you look at the cost of, the inflation rate in China and, just their human rights, even there, what was that? Who was the richest guy in China that went missing for 4 months? That Francis Ma guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He owned the Amazon of China.
Was he an Ali? No, wasn't. Was it? Was it Alibaba?
Alibaba.
He was an Alibaba
Yeah.
executive.
It's like the Amazon
gone.
of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
And then he showed
disappeared.
back up and he's like, I love China.
Yeah,
Like, what?
I'm so sorry.
He
And
started saying we don't like this.
did he
And
disappear again?
I don't.
Or is
think
he
he's
back? Is he back?
He was gone for 3 months, but
Guess who's back?
and he has the talking points down now.
Oh yeah, because he went through.
Because they inserted Neuralink in his brain.
No, he went through re-education.
Which is hitting big rocks and turning them into smaller rocks for 3 months, and
Yeah.
then the game is free back. But that's
He's
the thing.
bumping elbows with the
If
Jaegers.
China does become replace the United States, I just wonder how that would even happen with the humanitarian side of things, and globally, because
Scary.
yeah, and you keep peeling the onion back on all that stuff, but we have just as many. I don't say just as many. We have an aggregate amount of trade deals going back their way, and simple things like wine, a lot of our commerce, our high end stuff, bourbon and scotch and wine, and what's the other thing I was reading that China is buying up lobster. Maine lobster. So they will buy it up like crazy over there because they're whatever, they like that type of commodity, and so they're beholden to us on in a weird way on the commerce side, and we're beholden to them on lumber and electronics and slave labor. We'll just call it what it is. And so we kind of have to be
Well, we don't want to talk about that.
we're going to be they're just brothers, basically, that hate each other, but no, they're still family. And there's a need for both of them. I don't know. For me, I guess I'm not a conspiracy theorist to the end where I think the world's going to end, but because I just don't think it will. I think we'll just continue to act like it's not as bad as it is and keep printing money.
Right.
They'll never elect a president that will be we're going to balance the budget because all the free shit's done.
That's impossible.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think. That's the scary thing is. Maybe not the scary thing. I don't think the world's going to end either. I like to play that scenario out in my head and be okay. Not necessarily but I feel like you have to think about some of those things. But like you said, like I don't think the dollar is going anywhere. I don't think China is going to invade us and take over. You know, I don't think we have any of that to worry about.
Yeah.
But I think what we do have to worry about is we're going to keep playing this, you know, lose game.
Yeah.
And where does it put us? So it's like in my mind, I go, okay, I can't fix, you know, international like issues or let alone national issues. So what am I going to do to like make my life a little better and try to, you know what? Sometimes you can't beat them. You got to join them and play the game.
But like, what if crypto is like a whole is just the internet? Like that most people are like, oh, what's the internet? Email? Like whatever. I'll call somebody or, you know, just write them a letter or I'll fax them something. And a lot of people didn't see the depth that, you know what Facebook does with like data mining and all that stuff. So many people are like, well, I mean, that's not going to be. And a lot of the same stuff with crypto is like, what do you mean? It's a figure on a computer screen that I own, but how do I get it out? Or can you send me like a certificate so I can put it in a safe? Like, I think that's what crypto is for a lot of things. Is like it's the internet. The people that are adapting or not adapting it don't see past like what it actually is, and they don't see where like it can actually influence a lot of things, like investment. Like you think of a company that wants to grow, and you know, there's just a way to raise funds through crypto, and that is limited in banking, and so that's an evolution from like your online checking account. And if that's what you look at crypto is not like this monolithic change in our system, it's more of an evolution of banking. Then I think that's the big thing is people don't get it. And if you view it like that, you go, oh, okay, well, 15 years ago you didn't bank online and you wrote a check for your mortgage every month. You didn't set up an ACH and all these things that were like incremental changes in banking that made our life simpler and better. Well, what if crypto is like
it's that next stage
that with nitrous in it and gives you a lot more buying power and a lot more ability? And flexibility within the community to buy, trade, and accumulate. So,
yeah, and that's kind of how I see it too. I think you nailed it. The evolution. I think that's the way I look at it. I'm not going to say for sure because I don't understand blockchain and all these things nearly as much as some of these people do. I understand it. I think better than the average person, for sure.
I'm worse.
I don't think you are. You obviously understand it. You understand
I'm at the bottom.
Yeah, you understand it better than the average person too. Just by hearing you talk. Because most people just look at it and go, it's kind of the sound. I remember the thought like when picture phones came out and they put a camera on your phone. I'm like, what? This is the stupidest fucking thing ever. Who wants to take pictures with a phone? Well, now where we're at. So like I look at that kind of the same way as like, okay, so what's next? Like, all right, I've been to that way before where it's like, I thought this thing was stupid. So let's look into it. What's next? What's the next piece of that evolution? And not only just banking, I think the blockchain technology has a lot to offer for technology as a whole that people don't. And I think it's just misunderstanding it. People don't understand it at all. And they just say, "Wah." And then 15 years later, you go, shit, wish I would have bought that Apple stock.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It could crash and fail though too. You never know. Totally. So could Apple.
It could be Laserdisc. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
See, you know what I mean? You put all your money in Laserdisc and didn't buy any DVDs. And like, I got a house full of Laserdiscs and I can't sell them. It just reminded me when you said that about like picture phones. Like, there's a really funny Norm Macdonald joke where he talked about like when I was growing up, there was like one picture of my grandpa and he was like standing by a plow, like with a mean face, and it's like, that's my grandpa. And it's like, when like we're gonna be dead, our kids are like, this is my grandpa. Like, oh, what's he doing? Oh, he's eating a quesadilla by the beach. Like, that's what he did for a living. Like, you only knew like your grandpa was pictured doing his job, and that was the only picture you had of him. And they're like, what did influencer? So here's him drinking like electrolyte filled water,
cat filter on him.
Yeah.
Here's a picture.
Grandpa
of his,
wasn't a cat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
neither was that lawyer.
So like it was just a fun. I mean, of course, I don't do it anywhere close to justice, but yeah, it was a great example. But yeah, I mean, I'm always a believer in just continuing to evolve, and as much as you can, because I mean, I think right now, like my dad is my business partner, and he's in his mid-60s, and I know like his evolution is topping out. Like there's only so many things that he'll accept, like, and so you know, as long as I can stave off that, what's the word I'm looking for? Atrophy.
Yeah.
It's going to be better for me, because this is not. You think in the last 20 years, I think I had a camera phone in my senior year of high school, which was like 2003. But like, I don't know if I had an email address until I went to college, and they gave me one. I was like, so I'm just going to email my professors? Like, what am I going to do with this? And now it's like,
those were the days of Facebook when you had to have a college account to be part of Facebook.
I remember I had a buddy that had a face. I was just thinking that I had a buddy that had a Facebook. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And they're like, oh, well, you like all of this? I'm like, this is stupid.
I hated it. I was like the last person. I was like, it was probably 2007 when I actually got a Facebook, because I was just like, this is stupid. Because I remember I thought MySpace was dumb. I was like, this is another MySpace. I don't want to listen to your like Usher soundtrack when I get on your page. And yeah, and then I finally like broke down, and like one of my friends' girlfriends was like, we'll build it for you. And then it changed things.
I still hate Facebook.
Well, I undownloaded it from my phone, and
too many conversations with woke people commenting on football.
I have to have it for like I have to have it for marketing. Oh, sorry, I have to have it for like the marketing side of my company. So I have to have it, but like the moment I took it off of an icon that I have to like type in like an old man Facebook.com, like it keeps me out of it, because it just is. It's just an echo chamber of hatred.
Yeah,
and it just like it literally the day the story was I actually woke up and rolled over and was like, opened my phone, and it was in the middle of the pandemic. It was just like 5 posts of being like, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. And this person, I was like, why is this in my life? Like what? Yeah. And I just like deleted it, and I was like, this is ruining my morning already, and I haven't even done anything. So I post minimally, mostly just to make fun of people.
It's toxic.
Yeah.
You talked about evolution and that we're not wanting to succumb to atrophy. Is that where I heard you're a connoisseur of books? Is that where you're maybe not connoisseur? Yeah. Maybe that's too much, but you're a real book nerd, or?
I like to read. I like to read. I cannot read fiction. So like you're not gonna. I've never read Harry Potter. Like if there's a dragon in it, I immediately pass out. Like I just. No, I don't have any like imagination. I like to read like biographies or like memoirs. I get a lot out of that stuff. And then just historical events. I'm a really big like Malcolm Gladwell honk. Love his podcast too. I don't know. I just am a curious person, and I get really like worried that I'm in a rut. So I'll try to read. And I have a couple friends that read a lot too, so we'll like pass along different books that we're reading. And
what is it about the history and memoirs? Because that's so I picked up reading much more than I have in the past years, and I've switched from fiction to nonfiction quite aggressively. But I'm more of like a physics and like the universe type. And I read some other stuff too. But what is it about like the stories of people that have lived and that you really pull out of? Like, what is that about?
Depending on who it is, would I really like to if I know the person going in, and that's usually the goal, or a little bit about it, the honesty. Like, I'm not going to read like Joe Biden's kid's book, because I know it's just going to be like garbage. He's not going to really tell actually what he was like.
He's not going to tell the good shit, like when he was smoking crack, banging porn stars.
So yeah, exactly.
Because I'd read that. That sounds like a great time.
I'm for what I do for a living, and it just sounds corny, but like I get to be an entrepreneur, so I like to read those books, not the Art of Not Giving or whatever, or those like kitschy kind of books that are like 1, 2, 3 millionaire. I don't like that stuff either. It's more about like a really great book that I read that really has affected me was it was called Eat a Peach. was this guy named David Chang. He is a restaurateur, so he owns restaurants from Australia to wherever, and he started in New York City. But he talked about like how it was just a story, and he was like, I went to college to be a religion major because my parents were Christians, and I wanted to like prove them wrong, so I needed to know all the religions and what else. And he hated it, and then he started like this restaurant in DC and then all this stuff, but he talked about how much he failed. And he has a great podcast too, but just an interesting thing of like how his success was like dumb luck more than anything. Like he was like almost having to close his restaurant, and then he got a good review, and you know, he changed his menu because of what he thought was people wanted to eat was just what he wanted to eat. And so he kind of, it was just a really good portrayal of like really understanding what you're trying to do, but also like not being too precious with like, I screwed up and, you know, I opened this restaurant in Australia and I lost $4 million because I thought Australia was a cool country, and I found out that they hate Korean food. He's like, I didn't do any research beforehand. I just was like, let's open the restaurant. And then we started serving like bao buns, and everybody's like, what is this? This sucks. And so a lot of that stuff I like. Like I said, Malcolm Gladwell, anything that's like a social commentary, just trying to stretch what I believe to a different place is really interesting for me. I have a business coach that I have had for 5 years, so she's always sending books my way and pushing me to read and checking up on stuff. So she actually has my Audible account, so she can tell me if I'm lying. She's like, no, you didn't read that book. You got 4 hours to go. Like, so yeah, no, it's a big thing for me, like, because it just helps. I mean, I think anytime we can see like a position, like I just read a book really off the wall. It was about, I don't even know why I read it, but it's called Reading While Black. And it was about a African-American theologian who like was training people to see the Bible as a source of hope for black and brown people, and not as like something the white man gave them. And so that was like a really
interesting,
crazy deep book where it wasn't like we shouldn't be embarrassed of slavery. The idea was if we treat slavery like the Bible, like it was given to us for slavery, we give the power to slavery and not the power to the Bible. We should be looking past that and evolving. And so stuff like that, like where it just, I get like, oh, that was not what I thought it was, or that was not my position, and somebody can, you know, explain it away from me, man. That's what I like.
I think it's interesting. I think I've been kind of on a similar journey, at least myself, as reading stuff that I think like with the whole pandemic thing, you know, everybody I think had a little bit of extra time on their hands, you know, necessarily not traveling as much, or I was lucky enough that I still worked, you know, throughout, but I wasn't traveling as much, and I wasn't, you know, commuting time and all those things. So I had a little extra time, and it really gave me the opportunity to like look beyond, like try to, you know, push my own boundaries. And if you're open to doing that, like I found it interesting because there's still some times where I push my boundaries and I go, I get what they're saying, but
yeah,
I still disagree with you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you know who Ibram X. Kendi is.
No.
So he wrote a book. He's kind of an upcoming individual in the, I don't know what you call it, you know, civil equality movement, whatever. But he's a black guy. He wrote a book that has gotten a lot of news. It's called How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Oh, okay. I feel like I've seen the book cover of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies that are starting to use it. There's a lot of business. There's a lot of things people are starting to like put it on. They're like, hey, like we should read this. So I was like, all right, like, and I heard some of his ideas, and I'm like, that guy sounds like an idiot.
Yeah.
So I ordered his book to read. Like, all right, I need to understand. Before I guess it got to the point where like I kind of checked myself. I was like, okay, if I'm going to disagree with this guy and call him an idiot,
yeah,
I should probably listen to what he's saying. So there's a lot of times where I'm still reading it, but I'm reading it and like, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, down and down. And the next page I turn, I'm like, whoa,
yeah. Like,
sorry, I'm not following you there. And but it's still interesting to be able to have that ability to push yourself. And like, I think that's an important thing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the art of debate is lost right now. And like factions and teams, we'll call it. And that's the frustrating thing is, and that was from the book Reading While Black. And his big supposition was like, we should be able to debate each other on these topics. Like we don't have to be upset about it. Like, but we're not willing to ever debate. We want, we believe that there's a totalitarian solution for everything. And if you don't believe all 10 points of this, then you're not on my team. And you have to believe all 10 points over there, but you may not believe any of that. And so, man, it challenges me for a lot of stuff because, we grew up all in Wayne County, correct? Right? So the country. And, I joke, and my dad will never listen to this, but I call him like an accidental racist sometimes. And so he always makes me laugh. What I mean by that is, like, if we're in an airport together and he sees like a 6'8" black guy, he'll be like, oh, man, where do you think he played basketball? I'm like, I don't think every tall black guy played basketball. Right. Like, come on, man. My dad was looking at me like, come on, man, that guy's in good shape. Like, he definitely played basketball somewhere. I was like, I don't know about that. Or like,
right.
And like when we would Uber a lot before the pandemic, like if we would Uber, we'd be like at San Diego and a guy would pick us up and his name would be like, Jesus or something. And we're like, when did you get in the country? He's like, I was born here. And my dad was like, oh, so you've been here? Yeah, I graduated from Oceanside High School. Like, I'm as American as you are. That's just the name I have. Yeah. But my dad was like, he would always act like he was like the UN in an Uber. Like, oh, your car's clean. You're doing so well. What do you want to do? And this guy's like, I'm actually just going to college right now, and this is the easiest way to make money. Right. So my dad would like automatically think like this guy's like coming to America, and he's a first generation, like, And I'd be like, I know your heart is in the right place, but like this world's pretty big, especially our country. And so, like, I always call him like episodes in accidental racism because always, if he sees a name that's like ethnic at all, I'm like, oh, are you from Russia?
Bro, that's a book right there. Yeah. You got to write that, Shanny.
Yeah.
You got to write it.
But yeah, it's just different generation stuff. And, when you get to travel and do things, like you learn a lot about stuff and you learn about people, I think, more than anything, and like the reality of life that's different from where we live, which I love, but it's a specific way of life.
Right. Well, I think it's a good point too. We talked about, the technology and how far it's come since we were in high school and where we're at now. So, I mean, if you took yourself back 50 years and then all of a sudden you're flying to San Diego and you see all these people, you go, whoa, what are all these people doing? Like, you know what I mean? It's an entirely different world. Yeah. If you were in a place that is, like rural, like Montana or something like that, without any type of internet, without any type of, real other world, like other international and even national information just from different parts of it, you would never understand like what's going on. And so I think it's part of it, at least, I don't know, in my mind, I think it's that clash of internet and technology that we're having now. And it's like people like your dad, where it's like, the guy's not being malicious. Yeah. He just, ignorant in its best and, most like childlike way of like, hey, he just did, like,
let's give this guy a bigger tip because maybe he's going to start a laundromat. It's like, no, just because he's from the Middle East doesn't mean he's starting a laundromat. I know that's what you grew up with. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
like it's coming from love, but like a lot of people could see that and just be like, it's like, well,
totally.
This guy's 80 years old, or I don't know how old your dad is, but you know what I mean? Like, you see, like, they never had the internet. They never had social media to tell them how to act. Ugh. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so it's.
Yeah, I was thinking of it when you were talking. There's a show I really like was Mad Men back in the day, and there was what I loved about that show was like the specificity of the time, where late 50s, early 60s to the mid 60s, and they'd have these little things like sexist things like they would show a typewriter to a girl and be like, I know this looks really complex, but it's really easy to use. And I know for you,
that's the show I was trying to think of last night or the other day when we did a podcast. Sorry, not to derail you, but we're talking about
John Hamm,
toxic masculinity and those things. That was the show I was thinking of because it was set in that time where it was just like.
And there was an episode we went to he flew to California for like a conference. And long story short, he was having this dinner, and they're like, "Have you ever had Mexican food?" And he was like, "Mexican food? What's a Mexican food? What's Mexican food?" And it's like, wow. like he has had steak and potatoes and maybe like Greek and Italian food living in New York City. And they were like, yeah, this is like a pepper with cheese and rice in it. He's like, whoa. Like it blew his mind. I'm like, man, that was like 50 years ago that it was like a chili relleno was like a life-altering event.
I mean, I love Taco Tuesdays.
Yeah, it's just funny that was what I loved about the show was like that those little moments of like just ignorance, and Bliss was like post-war, everything's great, like, and just this blissful ignorance of anything that was happening around them. It was funny. It was very interesting that they put those little nuggets in all the time that showed the age of the show.
I think it's important, like, to realize. I think maybe that's even more so with like the younger people that have grown up that didn't have like a cell phone that was like with the green background and like it didn't fold and it was, there's no text messaging. It was just calling.
There's no wood grain Nokias.
Yeah, exactly. Like
those Nextel chirps that we used to have too. Like
StarTax.
Yeah. Like all this stuff is fairly new. So it's like our brains just haven't caught up with it yet, I think. I think it's interesting to look at it through that lens.
Well, we have interns at our company every summer and fall. Last year we kind of had a continual intern rotation because nobody was in school, and so our intern this year, she's 20, and we were talking about something today, and I had to we were having a conversation, and I had to back up the reference that I was using, before I can't even remember what it was. But it was like, before you used to use this, we had to use this. And it was really funny because this didn't work really well. And she was like, all right. It's not funny at all. And it's like, gosh. Because what am I, 36? I was like, man, I'm old. Like, this is terrible. And, I don't feel old. But then Peyton will look at me like, Friends? What's that show, Friends? I'm like, it's on Nick at Night now.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very interesting. And having little kids too, it's like, my son's 8, and so he's just watching this ridiculous stuff that I care so little about. I'm trying to understand Pokemon. I'm like, buddy, you're just gonna have to give your old man a little bit of a pass on this because I'm not gonna be willing to learn these 7,000 characters.
Right. We try to encourage stuff like Dr. Pole. Have you ever seen that? He's a veterinarian who just goes around and sticks his hand up cows' butts and stuff and shoves prolapse uteruses back in sheeps and stuff. It's like, well, what was
kids?
It? Well, it's like a veterinarian show. It's just that he's taking care of animals. And one time
we're gonna scar him.
Yeah, the one time the daughter was like, "What's a prolapse uterus?" We're like, "What? What the fuck are you talking about?" And then we come to realize it was. I mean, it kind of blurs it out, but it's medical stuff. It's it's real life. I was like, okay,
didn't know they made pessaries that big for cows.
Yeah.
But also, Fred did learn Pokemon to play with our 9-year-old.
I did.
And they had a great time.
I will not. I told Miles after a period of time, I was like, buddy, you can talk to me about it, but I'm not going to get it, and I'm not willing to try to get it. Because he just goes off on the handle about it. And I'm like, I'm not gonna if you can't read what the name of that thing is, I'll tell it to you. But I'm not gonna. And it's just a mess. But
I don't do a TV show or anything. But the card game is it's just I look at it as I break it down into the zeros and ones.
Yeah,
it's a strategic card game. We played that.
Were you making money off those cards? That's what it sounds like.
No,
one-offs.
No, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, no, that's another market that's crazy. It's trading cards. Holy cow!
The trading card is it back up now?
It's unbelievable. Well, not shift gears, but they unified So I mean, I did trading cards growing up, and I did it more for I like the organizational aspect of it. So you're like, oh, I have
Bro, do you have all the Beckett's?
Offensive line? Yeah. You get that
magazine. You knew them all? Yeah. So
I think I still have
for the Detroit Lions. I had them all.
Oh yeah, all the teams are together. Yeah, absolutely.
So I didn't trade them, but
by position.
I liked it and stuff. But I never held on to that stuff. And then, if you look at the trade markets, that's another really like closed-in marketplace. I mean, what was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Tom Brady's rookie card sold for like 2.7 million, 2.2 million.
I might have to. I think I have like a binder or two of like football cards somewhere that
Dude,
I've kept since I was little.
So
I might have to flip through them.
I have a friend locally here that he and his one of his friends like started actually doing it, because what happens is why it went up was they created like a unifying grading system. It's called PS. So like PS 1 to 10, 10's perfect. So if you get a PS 10 of like anybody famous, like LeBron, it's in the millions of dollars.
89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. rookie.
If it's a PS 10, you have to send it away. It takes 6 months, and they come back and they give you a grade.
6 months.
6 months.
Because it's inundated. Like there's all these articles of guys that would spend what's called. I went, of course, really deep nerdy in this for like 3 weeks. So they call buying wax. So they would buy the sheets of cards uncut. And so there was this article. This guy had spent like $18,000 on wax, and now it's worth $21 million.
Jeez, it's a good investment.
Now you can't buy cards. Like you can't where. As far as like the valuable cards, like you used to be able to go to Walmart and be like, Mom,
you buy a pack of
give me a
them.
pack of these cards on the way out. Yeah. Now that stuff is, and especially in the NBA side of things, where when I was growing up, it was like, okay, I had a Honus Wagner card or a Ty Cobb card or like, whatever rookie card. That was worth a lot of money. Now it's like Patrick Mahomes' rookie card sold for like $300 and some $1,000. He's only in his 4th year.
That's
he's not even in a Hall of Fame.
But how many did they make of them? You know what I mean?
That's a great question.
What I wonder too.
But they're like a specific like hologram, and that's why the NBA went to the NFT model, because they're trying to capture the evolution of the sports cards. If you look at, there's podcasts now that talk about like, and it's a market that moves up. Like so, the Super Bowl last year. So the Buccaneers won, Tom Brady won, of course, but there was all this stuff afterwards. It was like, should you buy? Or should you hold or sell your Tom Brady card? Because he may not win another one, and this is at his most popular. So now they're starting to sell those because he's, 40-something years old. And there's all this stuff, like, they don't trade them. They are selling them for enormous sums of money if they're PS10. And, like, the friend that I know locally, he had, like, a LeBron rookie card that he had bought, like, 6-7 years ago just because he's like, I want to have LeBron. And he paid, like, $250 for it or whatever. And he sent it away, and it was a I think it was PS10 or PS9. And I think he sold it for like $17,000.
Jesus.
And it wasn't a rookie. Did I say rookie? I don't think it was a rookie card. I think it was like an early LeBron card.
Yeah, not even a rookie
and so
card.
he had always kept like a small amount. And so he's making like decent money.
Just selling.
But now you can't get the packs at all.
Yeah.
Like guys are buying it in bulk and like just storing it. So it's almost becoming like diamonds. Like you buy it and you vault it. And then you pull it out and be like, well, this one just came out now. We didn't think there was any in rotation.
Are any of the older ones worth anything, or it's pretty much?
So
I've got thousands of full sets, like thousands of cards, but full sets, complete sets.
No shit.
Yeah.
You got to get them right. That PS system is what it is. So like if you have a PS 10 of a LeBron rookie, it's worth like, I think it sold for like 1.7. It was funny. That was like last month. And then he tweeted like, I wonder who has 12 of those in their house right now. Him.
Yeah. For sure.
And so,
he needs any more money.
Right.
But if you have like a PS8, that 1.7 million cards may be worth like $5,000.
Really?
Oh, it falls down real quick.
That's
and so
steep.
like these.
I'd still take $5,000.
It's such a nerdy
for
thing.
a piece of cardboard.
What is it called? Like unboxing? Like there's Instagram videos. Like you know how your kids like watch that?
Yeah.
My kids started watching those. I was like, no, you're not doing this. You are not watching other kids
play toys.
Yeah, unbox and play. Like shut that thing off and go do it yourself.
And so now people do that with cards, but they wear gloves.
Oh yeah,
and they have low light because they don't want. It's
the
whole like.
Do they do like that? Was it the AS?
heat would move the oil on your thumb.
Right.
So they
do they do like the ASM? Was it ASM where they talk into the microphone?
It's not a light bulb. Come on.
Do they open up the package like?
It's
and then they talk about it. It's all, and the crinkling of the screen.
Lonzo Ball rookie card. Oh my goodness.
And it's just your voice vibrations to mess up the molecules in the cardboard.
But it used to be like cards.
Schrodinger's cat that card.
They had a high end for the really rare Mickey Mantle, Honus Wagner, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then like if you had like a Barry Sanders card, who's the second all-time leading rusher and Hall of Famer, his card would be worth like $60. I don't know what his card would be worth right now, but if you got it rated by a PS10, it would have to be.
I've got some Barry Sanders cards.
If you get it rated, but like my buddy that does it, he sent like I think 100 cards in November, and he doesn't have them back. He might have them back now. I haven't talked to him in a month about it. But he's like, it's like a 6-month lag.
How much does it cost to have that done?
It's $100 a card.
Wow! So you have to know, like, you have to have a pretty good feel on it.
It's not a novice game. It's
How do you get the qualifications to do that to judge these cards?
So PS that was the thing, we used to have those Beckett magazines and stuff, and so there was no unified like grading system of the bill so you go to a card show and a guy was like, I think that's a fair condition card. Well, he's probably knows he's trying to get the money out of it.
Right.
So instead of making it kind of a smarmy thing, they made it a market. So like it's like a credit rating. So if you're a AAA credit rated company and you want to invest, or you're a blue chip stock, that's what a PS10 is. It's like Berkshire Hathaway, like now Apple. And so, but if it's an 8, it's like, oh no, it's not really Apple. It's, I don't even know what Best Buy. You know what I mean? Like maybe even not that.
Guess we're not getting sponsored by Best Buy.
Yeah, not quite Radio Shack though.
Yeah, exactly.
Radio Shack's like a P1. PS1.
Yeah. It's super interesting, man. Like I went on a deep dive. There were a podcast I listened to. They had a guy that was like, "We have this podcast. We do this card thing," and for 40 minutes, I was like, "There's no freaking way this is true." And then you just start researching it, and then I had a buddy that was telling me about it, but. It's like the whole, if I was 8 years old again, I would have just got a safety deposit box and never touched anything and then sent it all to, because, I mean, it has to be still good players, but like active players are in the hundreds of thousands. But that was never the case. So.
Dude, I literally have that. I've got basketball, baseball, football, hockey,
can we
soccer.
Just maybe we go over the one just.
Dude, there's
we could have,
so many of them just sitting in my garage.
And just have the stacks. Hey, just let's flip through these and see if you see anything else.
Dude, I'm kicking myself because I don't know where they're at anymore. I had Cincinnati Redlegger cards, and they were small cards, and I don't know where they're at. I feel like they'd be worth a lot.
Honestly, I could connect you with my friend, and he would be able to be like, "This is all garbage. Don't worry about it." Or he'd be like, "Ooh, there's 3 cards that you should send in." Because if you send a card that you can send in, it's worth $10,000.
Fire away.
Yeah,
have them on the podcast.
But I know that it's really stringent on the grading. Like to get a 10 is like perfect condition.
So you're putting this thing under like a microscope and.
Well, now that it's such a big thing, there's people that if you literally Google it because they're like, I spent $400,000 on wax and now it's worth like $70 million.
It's crazy.
It's what's funny is what you're seeing is with. This is my philosophy, but GameStop is a iteration of it. Like the idea that the market was controlled by Wall Street is a falsity now, more and more every day. The individual investors or pooling of investors can create markets like never before.
That's awesome.
And so similar like cryptocurrency, like you don't have to go the regular route to, accumulate assets. And so those are things that, because we're more connected and you can create marketplaces, and if you can create a baseline like the PS scoring system, okay, now we have a market. Now we have a market. Now we have a way to judge cards, and that's why value skyrocketed. So like if you get like a Jordan rookie or like a specific hologram type card, I mean, it's in the millions of dollars.
Those niches aren't so small, geographically small anymore.
And it's not like a sucker's game where you were at like a card show at the mall. You remember those you go to Bell & Bill's in the middle section of the mall was just a bunch of old guys with ponytails trying to sell you oh no, John Elway played in this jersey. Like, no, he didn't. You signed it.
Yeah.
And now there's an actual authentication system similar to like a credit rating for a company when you go public. So it's really interesting, and that's where my mind always goes is that is it's a stock market. It's like a small version of the NASDAQ.
Right.
And there's going to be more and more of that. But the problem is there's going to be people that, like you said, there's going to be cryptocurrency. There's going to be 5 things that look like cryptocurrency that are not it, and you get suckered into it. So
you got to do your research.
It's just like tech companies back then. It's like, this is the Facebook of food delivery. And you give all your money, and then it doesn't go anywhere. But then it's like, hey, what's that Gary Vaynerchuk guy? You know who that is? Gary V. Oh, he's annoying. He's written a bunch of books. But he was like, he's very tight in the technology business. You would actually probably like him. He gets old. He's very just like New York and doesn't care. But his big thing is like he made a lot of money investing in like tech startups, but he's like, I could have gave $50,000 and had like a 12% owner stake in Uber. And I was like, this is stupid. So I didn't give them and it was my friend who was like, we're going to do this thing. And he's like, you're never going to be taxis. So he didn't give him the money. He's like, that $50,000 would have been like some crazy number in the hundreds of millions of dollars. But that's all of his, he does a lot of that stuff. He's big into the trading cards thing too. He wants to buy the jets. But he talks a lot about like that investing, how it was like in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, like everybody had like, we're going to be the Facebook of, or we're going to be the
this and that.
Yeah. And so it was like, yeah, I gave a lot of money to things that didn't work, but I also gave some money to things that like 15 grand got me 4% of a company that sold for, I think, what was the one he had like, it's called the Wine Library. And it was like this online wine thing. It was a family company, and he actually invested in it, whatever, and it sold for $700 million. And he gave like his brother, I'm probably butchering the story, but he gave like whoever was in charge like 20 grand to build the website.
No,
and then he cashed in at like a ton of money.
Well, it goes back to the cards and everything else. Like, all it takes is just finding that one thing that takes off. Obviously, you're gonna fail, and I think that's one of the biggest things that like I hear successful people talking about is how much you have to be willing to fail. Yeah. But you can't put everything in one basket. Yeah. It, as an investor, or you have to go, okay, this crazy idea, this crazy idea, this crazy idea. I think they may all work out, and if they do, it's going to be great. But you have to find those niche things that turn out to be niche things, and niche things are becoming more and more bigger because we're able to connect. It's funny you're talking about the cards. I have a silver dollar from, was it 1932, I think, something like that. And I'm like, man, like, I wonder how much this thing's worth. Obviously it's an ounce of silver, so it's at least worth $30, but then like the grading of it, if it would have been kept perfect, it'd be, cause the type it was, or type it is, like, it'd be worth like $5,000. But like, I'm looking at it and they have like little pictures. You can like adjust it and look at like, maybe if it's this condition, like all the way down the grading scale. It's like, mine might be worth like $80, and it's in really, really good condition, but it's not perfect. Like, it's like, if you have those things, some of those people, land on those gold mines. But
yeah, and that's like, if coins, and I don't know a ton about coins, but I know that like, similar to the way cards were, like there isn't like a general, like total unifying grading system that everybody believes in. And if something like that, if they figure out how, like, and that's the thing that the trading cards to me as a lesson is, if you can quantify a grading system and everybody like behaves, or everybody believes in it and utilizes that as the gospel, now you have a market. And that's how you organize, and that's how you close. That's how you can close in the market, and now you have an opportunity to really see growth. And that's what always was. I think people just didn't understand, and they all just thought like the stock market is this thing that I don't really get, and these people in New York do, and I give my money to this guy Raymond James, and he never talks to me again, but he sends me this thing in the mail, and it looks like I'm making money, so I guess I won't ask him more questions. And now you're seeing people like, what if we took that mentality and unified like rules and regulations, and then created markets in these niche areas? They're going to be a lot more volatile,
right?
But they're also the upside swing. So it's like if all of a sudden in 6 months coins become a big thing because some type of company is like, hey, we're gonna be the people that grade everything. Send your coins to us for this fee. And the industry takes that as gospel, your coins are going to be worth many, many times more than what they are, because now we have a market. And that's the thing that people didn't have years before. It was all secondary. It was
a certified stamp on it.
They're going to call it like Coinbase Tangible or something.
You can't. Some nerd is doing that right now, is writing the code for that. But I mean, I think that's what the idea is of all the stuff that's like secondary currency or secondary market stuff, niche or whatever you want to call it. That is the big unlock. Is like if you can quantify the rules and regulations, you got a market, and if you can attract people, and that's when it goes up. And people just didn't get that for a while.
Well, that's the key there, right? Is quantifying it and attracting people. Because going back to our, currency talk, it's only worth something if
someone believes it's worth something.
If the majority of people believes it's worth something. Obviously, if you can find that one person that believes it's worth something, but it's money and.
I gotta see if my cards are worth something now.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of good cards, but
like dude, I like literally, dude, I've got that like.
He lives in town.
I'm talking like huge Rubbermaid containers just full.
We'll have to have them on because I know like even like it sounds for most people it sounds kind of boring, but like when you talk about just the idea behind it, like. Mm-hmm. Like there's this giant market out there of these people. It's just that's super interesting.
You know him. You probably know him, and I just don't want to say his name because I don't know.
Oh yeah,
if he's okay with it, but like
yeah, no, for
it
sure.
won't
We
be
can
something
talk
that's a secret to you. But
we can talk about afterwards.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I was reading about it, and then my wife and his wife are friends, and she was like, "Oh yeah, he's like really into trading cards. It's so weird." I was like, "What?" I just like spent like a week like literally laying in bed like, "Wait, why is this what?" Why? And so I like found him and I was like, "Are you really doing this?" He's like, "Bro, I made like 20 grand last month." I was like,
"Jeez,
yeah,
what?"
Tell me more.
Apparently you are.
And I got 100 cards waiting to get like rated by the PS. I was like, "Jeez." So, but yeah, it's wild, man. But it's more about like not so much what it is, it's how it's being done, and this is the evolution, in my opinion, of the tech bubble. It's like instead of startup companies, it's going to be startup markets. And so maybe it's something that you're going to get into. Like, I don't know what it would be. Like, if you could quantify tires, you can do it in a different way. You can if there's a limited supply of goods, then you set a standardized market and regulations for it. Now you got a marketplace. And
that's interesting.
It's really like your freshman year of finance that they tell you, like, this is how a market works. And I don't think anybody ever took it to the place where now we have the technology and now we have the ability to communicate with everybody where it's like, no, the card you bought in Buffalo is not going to be as worth the card that was sold in Denver. Now it is. And now it's a commodity. So I look forward to the commodity. How to say it? Commoditization. That's the way to say it. Of other really weird things. Like, what happens if that happens to bourbon in a real way?
Ooh, we better stop drinking.
I'm good drinking my stuff because I probably buy the cheap shit.
But we know the secondary market's crazy. But like, there still isn't a regulation for like if you were able to really figure out, but that Food and Drug is going to never let you make the money.
No.
But something in that way where there's a finite supply.
Black market.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When that's like they shut down all those Facebook pages.
Crypto.
Yeah.
Baby.
Yeah, blockchain. Build it on the blockchain.
I'm telling you.
Oh, did we just find an idea right there?
Maybe. I mean, there's
blockchain bourbon?
Yeah, there you go.
Buy the URL right now. Blockchainbourbon.com.
I don't know how it would work because I don't exactly, but I know you can do a lot of things on the blockchain that I don't know how to do them.
I had a conversation with some guy and he was trying to explain to me blockchain. He was like, "Oh, my friend owns like some blockchain and it's like attached to the what's Hoover Dam."
What?
And the power of the water, like energy that he's doing it is like the calculations. And I was just like 3 minutes into the conversation, I passed out. But he was explaining blockchain to me like
Tony's doing a pee dance over here.
Oh, we're good. You keep talking.
I could actually go for a bathroom break too, so we can take a quick break.
We want to like dueling swords? We want to all do it at once?
Good. I got a big bathroom. Did you even get to hear how you got herpes?
By the way, just a story on herpes. That time that you told me you got it, Tony. No, we actually. You guys know what Cameo is, probably, right?
Who?
Cameo.
Oh, is that where like the stars like will like famous people?
Yeah. So
will like record
a brief appearance.
Yeah.
One of my employees is like a really big fan of the WWE, and he's an adult, so I make fun of him mercilessly. So when he had his birthday, I guess I forget who it was. I tried to get Ric Flair, but he was like $700, and I'm like, I'm not giving you that kind of money. Woo! So I got some like wrestler to do it, but they're supposed to be like, happy birthday, brother, whatever. So, but you get to tell them what to say. So I told him like, hey man, I know it's your birthday. You know, I know you just found out you had herpes. You can get through it, man. Just tell your wife, but I don't have to be a friend. Like, so he was super pumped that like one of his wrestling heroes was talking to him, but then he was consoling him about getting herpes.
Oh my gosh.
That's why I love Cameo.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if you ever want to just really make fun of somebody,
Really
like
mess with somebody.
yeah, give like the 7th star of The Office to tell them like, I'm sorry you have bone cancer. It's always fun.
Oh, because they get really excited. And they're like,
oh man, Kevin from The Office is talking to me. Oh yeah, you don't have pancreatic cancer.
that's messed up. I don't remember where we ended before the bathroom break, but I did. We talked about books. We talked about. Oh, real quick, do you have like a time frame that you do?
I don't.
Okay, I just wasn't sure.
My boss, my wife, gave me the go ahead.
Okay.
The kids are already in bed, probably. So
Okay, I wasn't sure.
not quite, but close enough.
You mentioned books a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you had to, because I've been looking into books. So, like, top like 3 books that you would suggest, just out of my curiosity.
So, genre speaking. So actually, I don't know what you do for a living, so that would maybe help me.
It doesn't matter what I do for. I'm curious. I'm curious for a living. But I want to learn something. But just in general.
So I would say it's gonna be hard for me to say for you, like.
Not for me, just in general. If you're
in
like
general.
top 3 books, like
three most important books that I've read.
Yeah.
Number 1, it was a book I'm actually rereading because I struggle to adhere to a lot of the stuff that's in it that I love. It's called Building Your Story Brand. So it's by Donald Miller, and really interesting book if you're into sales. Basically, what he breaks down is he's actually an author of fiction books, and he was an author of a very important book when I was in college. And I'll joke because I went to a Christian university, and he wrote this book about like questioning your faith. So that was the book you like put on the outside of your like business book to walk through the hall. So a girl would be like, "Ooh, that guy's deep. He's questioning his faith." And I'd be like, "Yeah, do you want to go to coffee later and talk about this? This is a really complex subject." So it was like the cool, like hip, like not really going against the rules, but like I'm thinking about maybe not listening to people. And so he wrote those books, and then he wrote this book on business, which is really interesting. And the whole thesis of the book is that the reason why like movies follow the same tropes, like rom-coms, it's like good guy wants girl, girls with bad guy, girl doesn't see guy's bad, blah, 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 good guy, good girl, in the end work. And it's like his whole thing was like, I ruin every movie I watch with my wife because she'll be like, oh, that guy's not going to get the girl. That guy's going to get the girl. This guy's going to die, whatever. And so it's the art of storytelling. And those well-worn tropes, Hollywood knows people will show up for. And so Hollywood, in the end, is a money-making business. So his big thing in your personal company is simplify your story brand to understand the story you're trying to tell. And his thing is like find the not the victim. The victim is the client, but you find the bad guy. And you isolate the bad guy, and that's how you tell your story, is how to have them avoid that. So you want to be the good guy in the rom-com. And so a lot of it takes away from like, there's a book that everybody I think read, or a lot of people read, was by a guy named Simon Sinek, like Start With Why. And it was about all of this very high level communication on why you do what you do. And so everybody did the why statement, which was like an evolution of a mission statement. And I'll land this. But the why statement was always like a big paragraph of $10 words on why you do what you do. And his thing was like, I don't believe in that because your client isn't going to work with you because how smart you are. They're going to work with you because you solve a problem. And so building your story brand is building the story of your company so that you can as quickly and as specifically meet the need of your clients or who you're going after. So that's been a big book because I think on my side of the table as a business owner, entrepreneur, like I get in my own head about how smart I want to sound. And really his is like, it's clarity, not specificity. And so there's a big difference there. So instead of giving 7 illustrations on how smart you are, like our company motto is we help you find all the money. Like those are, was it 7 1-syllable words or 2-syllable words. And so that was a big difference. That was a big change for me because as I was growing through my 20s, like you're always trying to tell everybody how smart you are. And that's for you. Those things were for me to feel good about what I said. I wasn't trying to connect with people, and that book changed how I viewed that. So Start With Why, super easy book. Oh no, that's not Start With Why. That's Simon Sinek. Building Your Story Brand, super easy book. I really like that David Chang book. I think you'd like it a lot. Eat a Peach. He has this really great illustration. I'm actually getting a tattoo, which I'm not a tattoo guy, but from that book, I'm getting it because he gives this illustration on the Korean culture about lobsters and why they're such a sacred animal. Because lobsters can be over 100 years old, and lobsters continually molt and lose their shell and grow bigger, and the next shell is always harder and better. And the only time you know that a lobster is dying is when he stops molting. And so his big thing is like molting is scary because you lose your shell and you lose your protection, but you have to trust that the new shell that you're going to grow is going to be better for you and going to give you more room to grow. And so I'm actually getting like a lobster on my arm, which sounds really stupid, but because that means a lot to me. And that was a big challenge for me, like the curiosity thing of if we can understand that philosophy of like continually like finding our ceiling and then breaking through it or breaking our shell. That's a big thing for me. I'm trying to think about. I'm going to cheat here and look at my Audible and just see if there's anything. I would say.
I'm like, why would you end the show now? That's awesome. No, yeah.
The other book I would say, I
love it.
I'm such a Malcolm Gladwell honk, so I apologize if everybody's read all his books. The last book that he wrote, which is a really interesting, I'll tell you, do it on Audible because he does it more theatrically. He reads it, but there's also music involved. It's Talking to Strangers, and he breaks down a lot of social issues, social happenings, like the Sandra Bland. She was the lady that was pulled over in Texas and ended up hanging herself in her cell, and the understanding of like breaking down the whole situation, understanding who that cop was and everything that happened, and breaking down, why there's 2 sides to every story. And the way he writes his books a lot of times, they're almost in short story form. So there'll be like 12 of those. So they're like 40 to 50 pages a piece or 30 pages maybe. And they're all on a common theme, but it's different iterations of that. So I really like how he writes because I struggle with like a 500-page book. Sometimes I'm like, all right, get to where he dies. Like, where am I at here? Who cares? And so that book was really important for me. Like, that's like a social issue thing. Not to be, I hate the term woke, because he actually gives a lot more perspective from the police side of things, and little things like, to be really specific about that Sandra Bland, like when that cop came up to her car, one of the things that was going on in their community was there was a lot of drugs being run from out of state. And so she had an out of state plate, and then she had just moved there. So she had all of these fast food empty containers in her back seat. So that's a lot of times a telltale sign of somebody that's muling into the town. Like they drove in to drop something off and is leaving. And that cop also was like somebody that had like almost a 2.5 times more stop rate than any other cop. And they didn't identify that in time. And so he was kind of like trying to be a hero all the time. So he broke down a lot of it from like not being like white cop hates black people. Like it was a lot of like how everything broke down from her coming in. She was moving from she had like family die. She moved to Texas for a new job, was trying to start over, and then got pulled over by a cop. So she was emotionally in a bad state. So it gave like a lot of the color to it. So that was a really important book for me to just push like my narrative. Because, like we said, from Wayne County, I think we're like from an area that's really practical. So a lot of times throughout my life in these situations where like, I'm not going to be able to solve that stuff, but like with police brutality, things of that nature, race issues, like my initial mindset is like practicality. Like, don't be a jerk and don't do this. And don't, like how your parents be like, don't be in the backseat of the car of the guy that was driving drunk. Like, that's your fault and you get it. and like oversimplifying big situations. And that was a book that kind of pushed me to be like, okay, if there's 100% blame, how does it get divvied up? But also, how do you get better? And that was a really important book for me too. So those are kind of 3 like business, just like fun reading, because I really like David Chang. I think you guys will like him. He's kind of he's a really interesting guy, and he's very opinionated. And then that book from Malcolm Gladwell, and he's got a great podcast. If you guys will listen to that, what's it called?
Is it? You looked up Michael. What? How do you say?
Malcolm Gladwell.
Malcolm. It's
Malcolm.
He was the one who wrote that
it's
original
something
book,
history.
Blink.
Why am I so stupid that I can't think of his name? Revisionist History, which is just a great name. So his whole thing is like re-looking at historical events and bringing perspective that you probably thought you didn't know about. So that's a whole other line of conversation. He's just really, I don't believe everything he does. I mean, I think he's definitely more on the woke side of things, but he definitely is thought-provoking and really thorough when he does things. So I think that's it.
Sounds like I'm going to pick me up another book or two.
Honestly, the number one thing to do is like download his podcast, because he does these little 30-minute bits on like.
Is he on like Spotify or like all those other?
Yeah.
I'll check him out, because I'm always looking for new stuff too.
Yeah, like he has like really a fun one is they talk about McDonald's and how they changed their fries when we were like in the 80s when we were kids, and the idea was they changed it because they used beef fat, and it made them amazing. And then all these people came and were like, beef fat's bad for you, so they changed it to homogenized vegetable oil, which is actually worse for you, doctor. Correct?
Yeah.
And he goes through like,
Give me the tallow.
yeah, exactly. And so, but they also said like at that time, McDonald's fry was like 4.7 ounces, and now a large fry is like 13.9. So it's like
Holy
more
shit,
fries of the
portion
worst
percent,
kind.
yeah.
He was like,
Super says
better product, less of it, you would sell. And McDonald's like, and so they did all these taste tests, but he just talks about how like the perspective of like people thought like vegetable oil has to be better than beef oil because vegetables better than beef. And it was this one guy who had a heart attack, and he was a millionaire, and he fought McDonald's, and they changed. And all this backstory to find out that this guy was wrong, but McDonald's just for the PR stunt was like now made with vegetable oil,
right,
and was killing more people because they were giving them like 200% of the volume of a worse type of oil to fry things in. So,
yeah. What's incredible to think about it, I think that really. I don't know why it does that. I need a tech guy. It feeds into. Usually like cuts out like 10 seconds. So not even 10 seconds. It's like 3 seconds when it does that. I don't think it's done that the whole time. All right. Anyways, it feeds into your discussions about how, because I look at the same way. Like I'm very practical.
Yeah.
I'm very numbers based and kind of like, all right, this is what it is. This is, don't be a jerk. And,
yeah.
If you run into another jerk, stay away from that jerk and you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
But the nuances of life and experiences and, tying in with your dad traveling different places and just seeing somebody that looks a little different and thinking, oh, well, there's so many things that go on a constant basis that it's hard to see what's really always going on. I like you said something about 2 sides to every story.
Yeah.
3. I was gonna say that's literally what I was about to say. That was one of the biggest pieces of advice that I've ever kind of absorbed was there's always 3 sides to a story, mm-hmm. His side, her side, and the truth. Yeah, somewhere in there.
And that's what for me with Gladwell when he's great, he leaves it open. Sometimes a little bit of his influence. I mean, he's of course a very liberal guy. He's from Canada. Super interesting guy, but sometimes he does make the conclusion for you. But when I feel like when he's at his best, he's making a great argument. And I won't be a fanboy too much, but there's so many great I re-listen to podcasts from him all the time because just really weird topics or really small ideas. He blows up into this this huge idea, like the idea of like genius, and he uses the song Hallelujah, which is a really crazy thing. And he's just a really, really prolific thought person. And so in their 30 minutes, you're like in and out by the time you get to work, and you're not like it. Sometimes those Rogan podcasts are like 4 hours. It's a week of my time to get through one of them, and I forget what they were talking about by the time it's in the end anyway. So, no, he does a lot of good stuff.
Well, I enjoy that. It's the exploring the whole depth of it. You know, I actually had a conversation with somebody recently about they had said something or posted something or done something. And I was just like, hey, like, what do you mean by that? Like, because I don't get, like, because there's like 3 different references is one thing, and I was like, how are you connecting all these things? I don't know what what you're talking about. And they had mentioned the podcast or whatever. They're like, don't worry about, like, your questions are always kind of like genuine and curious. I'm like, well, that's kind of what we do. I said, and even when I think it's extremely difficult for us as humans to try to, even when we're being open-minded, to not have our biases kind of seep in.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it's, regardless of how hard you try to do that, it's still going to happen. But I think going back to what you like, continually challenging yourself, like, that's super important, especially with the flood of information you can dig through. And
I mean, not to bring it back to the Bible, but like Paul said, we continually find myself doing the things that I don't want to do. And I think we continue to find ourselves thinking the things that we don't want to challenge. And it's tough to continue to do that because it's really easy to be like, well, that guy's an idiot. Right. And then, like, something that really random that I remember Dave Chappelle said years ago, it was on Inside the Actors Studio. It was after he went to Africa or whatever, that whole thing went down. And he was like, the worst thing you can call somebody's crazy because that's dismissive. That means you didn't take the time to understand what they're saying. He's like, oh, what he did, I would never do that. That's crazy. And if you didn't know the backstory of what the decision was, now maybe it could be crazy, but if you just read a headline or take something at face value and say, oh, it's crazy, a lot of times you really miss the purpose of what happened. And so, man, it's something that, I mean, I'm definitely not perfect or even close to anything like that, but it's interesting to me to see successful people, but also learning like successful people that failed a bunch and figured it out kind of on accident. And then it helps you as an entrepreneur or as a business owner be like, okay, I don't have to beat myself up so bad. Like, I didn't bankrupt the company. Right. I just, had my zipper down. And so, this perspective that is what a lot of this helps me gain for sure.
Yeah. And I think using those 2 keywords, crazy and successful, by whose standards? Yeah. That's what it comes down to. At least for me, it's like, all right, successful by whose standards? What do you consider success? Because there's a lot of things that people, that their definitions is much different. Same thing as successful, crazy. All those. I don't know. What do you consider crazy or successful? Or what do you consider crazy successful? Yeah.
Most of the things that Tony does, I feel like, are crazy. Because this company's cut down trees in my house, and they saw like these dudes like flying up trees and knocking them down. And I could never do any of that stuff. And
it's all calculated.
Yeah. But that's totally not anything that I could even understand. And like, but I mean, like we keep saying, like continually pushing yourself, even though we're in Wayne County, Ohio, and we're probably not going to be president of the United States, or maybe we'll be crypto rich one day, but that still doesn't mean like, and that's why I struggle. I have a brother-in-law who's like really, I won't talk bad about him, but he's really kind of off his way right now, and he struggles with like, just like a manic attitude on things, and I always kind of tell him, like, you can't fix the world. Like, you get so wrapped up. It's like, man, be good you today, or, whatever. Right. Like, and his struggle is always like, but, whatever, sex trafficking, or, this and that, and deep state. And he gets in all these, like, there you go. And he gets in all these, like, really deep, but he does it in a way that's, it's actually right now, I feel like it's past its usefulness, and now it's becoming almost like a cult thing for him. And I'm not speaking on, I've watched some of the stuff. It's not really that what I believe is right or wrong. It's just his attitude towards it. I was like, man, if you lose touch with reality and society, like that's never good. And there's a lot of stuff there that I'm always trying to push him to be like, I know you see all this bad. I do too, but like, you gotta go to work. Like, what if you were just a really good worker the rest of your life and you treated everybody fair? Like, that's a good life. Just because you didn't eradicate sex trafficking in, Ethiopia or Istanbul, like, that doesn't mean you didn't have a valuable life. Like, you have to, like, set your sights on something that's attainable. And maybe over time that grows into a place, but, like, you don't go from not doing anything to the CEO. And I think that's a lot of people in our world right now miss the grind part of life, because now you can start a podcast and be a millionaire, or like fart on YouTube and make $10 million. Like, so they see that and like, well, but that's for a couple people, but the rest of us got to go like intern, salesman, regional manager, national manager, president, CEO.
And then what happens? So what happens if you get that $1 million and you didn't grind, but you lose it?
Yeah. That's what, and the appreciation isn't there.
No.
And you didn't know how you got it in the first place, so you don't know how to get the next one.
Yep.
There's some people that are just lucky. I mean, this period, point blank, like they had a good idea and they made a lot of money, and there's nothing against them, but that would be like me being like, well, why can't I play in the NBA? Like, well, I didn't get the genetic lottery that those guys got. Like, and you're probably not going to get that either on an idea. So you're probably going to have to grind, and maybe at some point you'll hit the lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I think it's you. It really hit me when you said, you're not going to just go from intern to CEO.
Yeah.
And I think applying that to life is a really interesting. You want another water?
No, I'm good.
You good? Okay, I wasn't sure. I was empty. I think it's a really interesting thought of applying that to life.
Yeah.
Because it is frustrating. I found myself in some semi-dark places last year with the whole, because I for the longest time, just a little personal background, I didn't give a shit about anything. It was like, I hate people. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want this. I don't want to deal with anything. Just leave me alone. And obviously here I am. We started a podcast where I talk to people on camera. So things have changed, and then it was, all right, I really started looking into, different investings and things to like, just help myself out. And then it was getting in, not necessarily involved, but understanding with the political aspect and what was going on. Because last year was the first time I had voted since I was 18. Because I was like, why am I doing this? It doesn't matter. So I had a very like nihilistic approach to everything. So I found myself down those rabbit holes of getting frustrated with, the media is lying to me and all these things. And it's like, I'm not going to change that.
Yeah.
Like you said, you took the Facebook. It might have been before, or it might have been during, but like you took the Facebook like app off the phone, so you can't just click it and just feed yourself all that negative crap all day long. Yeah. So it was one of those things where it was like, there's got to be a balance here. So like there's like, I got to go to work, I got to pay my bills, I got to like try to keep a happy home as much as I can. So like, but if you want to still be active, you still want to try to change things or whatever, then what can you do in the meantime? Like, but like you said, it's not going to help to get freaked out and, piss your entire family off and ruin your life for this crazy, rabbit hole you're going to go down and never do anything with.
Yeah. But what, I 100% agree. And that's thanks. That's the, we, like I said earlier, we have interns at my company, and I really believe in that program. I have a small company, but about 5 years ago, we started doing interns, and that was a real thing for me. Like, my dad started a company, and he's like, he's a baby boomer. He started it with an idea, and like, I think I can do this. And so I have to respect that he literally like created our company out of nothing. But where I need to take it, or where I'm skilled or interested in taking it, we had to continue to evolve. And one of the things was with interns, because I have a finance degree, and I don't use anything I got from my finance degree. And like our internship that we do, pathway that we do, depending on what the focus is like very much. It's not bullying. It's not go wash my car, go get my lunch. Like that doesn't also help anybody. But it's also not like you get to go to this business meeting and sit here and say anything. Like, you can come, but you're not going to sit at the table. You're going to sit there. You're going to watch business people operate, and you're not going to say anything because you haven't earned it yet. But I'll let you be in the room. I'll let you travel with me, but you can hand stuff out, but you're not going to say anything about our company. And they need to understand that, like, that is what, like, when I graduated college, I answered the phone. Back when we had fax machines, I sent faxes and pulled stuff off the printer. Like, that's what my dad made me do so I could understand that you don't just go to be salesman because you're the son of the boss. But I think that's a big thing that people forget is, like, you know, we have all of these other avenues which are great to earn money, and it's not so close-ended, like go get a job and work. There are other avenues for those creative people, but for most people, the idea of grinding, which means just being so good at your job that you get bored and have to get a promotion. There's another great book. That's another book that you should read. It's called Range, by David. It's a powder blue title. That's a great book.
Powder blue. You may remember the
book cover. It's a book called Range, and what it is a great. And I know I'm dovetailing here, but it's a great idea. His thesis of the whole book, David Epstein. His thesis of the whole book is that.
Oh, what a sad last name.
Yeah. Jeez. He talks about Tiger Woods because Tiger Woods at like 18 months picked up a golf club. And so everybody saw that, and he became the greatest golfer of the modern era. And they go, that's the blueprint. And really, his thesis is actually differentiating. It's not being the master of one. Yep, that's the book. And his whole thing is about having your kids play multiple sports, being good at multiple things. When you hire somebody, don't look at somebody that's worked at one job for 10 years because they probably were unhappy and weren't willing to speak up or didn't bet on themselves enough to go after what they wanted. They'd rather be invisible and take the check. If you have somebody that's been in 7 jobs in 7 years but has always worked, that means they're actively looking for a passion. And if that's your job, that's your company, you're going to have better results with that. And so most people look at resumes. His thing is incorrectly. They look at like, oh, he's only been one place. I've done a lot. Like, oh, this loan officer's been at 4 different companies. Oh, he seems like a job hopper. It's like, well, maybe those 4 companies didn't support him or her. And so Range talks about being like a master of none, but being very proficient in a lot of areas. And I think that's what most people don't do. It's like, I want to be the CEO. I want to own the company. So I want to tell everybody what to do. And it's like, you have to be told what to do. And then through that, understand what you don't like and build your worldview of business or whatever you're doing through that. And then at a certain point, you have enough background to go after what you want to do. So that's another great book too. More hitting you guys for that stuff. So Ranges, and it's a really easy read in audiobook.
Well, I think too, once again, as you're talking through and, you talking about the intern and, I did not go to college. I did not do the intern route, the business route, different things. And, but you hear a lot about that. Like, I've been in those situations, different companies where you have the new person that comes in. They want to do something. They want to do something. They want to work. They want to do this. They want to, which I get, it's great that you have this tenacity to, to move forward. But when no amount of education or titles or pieces of paper beats experience, and you kind of look at it and it, instead of just the intern has to sit there because they haven't necessarily earned it. Well, it's not just, in my mind, as you're talking about, it's not necessarily that they haven't earned the ability to do something, but they haven't earned the knowledge to be able to do something. It's kind of like you think about someone who would build a house. Think of a company. I'm just going to use a weird analogy that I thought of as you're talking, but owning the company is being able to build a house. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? You have to know how to dig the basement. If you live in an area where you're going to dig a basement, you have to lay the block. You have to know how to do that. Then you have to know how to lay the subfloors and the walls, and you have to know how to put the roof on. You have to know how to run the electric and the plumbing, and finish the flooring, and build the deck and put the driveway in. Well, how do you do? Most people, the best way to do that is you watch somebody do it. that you get to the intern sitting in the corner and seeing, oh, okay, you see the interactions between people, you see how those business meetings work. And I think there's a lot of times that I've seen that people just, it gets attributed to them that they think that they just wanted, that they have the capabilities of doing these things without deserving them. But at the same time, like, it's not necessarily deserving. You just haven't learned how to do this stuff yet.
Yeah.
So like, you got to learn it. Like, and if you have a good mentor as an intern, like, you can learn a lot of stuff. Just, you got a lot of time. You got.
It's just everybody's different. I mean, you look at different people and different successes, and that's one of the things that with the Gladwell podcast he'll illuminate a lot of times is like certain people are just gonna learn things really fast and gonna get to that place of knowledge quicker than others, and that doesn't mean the people that get there slower are worse. So you look at of course the example everybody's going to use is like Mark Zuckerberg leaves college and creates Facebook at 20 whatever.
I think he fell into that.
Yeah.
In a sense. I mean, obviously he put work in, but
he was able to very quickly, when it was presented to him, create something and move quickly through that and create something that was unique and change the world. But also, like, you look at Ray Kroc, who was officially the founder of McDonald's. Like, he didn't come across the first McDonald's, which was owned by two brothers, until he was like in his late 40s. He was a milkshake machine salesman. But after all the failures, he had everything. He continued
those things are always breaking too.
Yeah. Yeah, the ice cream machine never works.
Sorry.
But you look at him and like, he was worth hundreds of millions of dollars in the 70s and 80s because he actually at that point he was ready to create his empire or be the president of everything. But that doesn't mean that his story is worse than Zuckerberg because he got there quicker. And that's what I want to tell like our interns a lot of times or young people when I get to talk to them every once in a while is like, you want it now, but you don't know how long you have. And you may get it now. You may find an idea. You may have a thought. You may make a video or whatever it is. And you may get to where you want to go quickly. But if you don't get there quickly, don't feel like there's something wrong with you. Or also don't think that it won't come. There's so many stories of people that had success early, middle, late in their career, late in life.
Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So all that stuff. And so I think it's just like, I know we're now becoming old people where I'm telling young people to be patient. But it's not being patient, it's be resilient. Like, just because you're not, like, you go in this company and you think it's going to be great and you're a financial advisor with, some big firm and you find out like this sucks. Like, nobody's going to be mad at you if you switch and go into teaching or you find your value somewhere else. And I think there's so much pressure, I think, now with how universities are run is like, find your thing and then go do it. And it's like, Rogan always talks about like your brain isn't fully formed till like 24 or something. And so you're like trying to make a decision at 20 to be like, when I'm 50, I'm still going to love this. Like, don't be so like finite in that. And that's what that book talks about is like, do a lot of things. And you may find out that, you know what, I want to be a gym owner or I want to be something else. You find out that you can quantify your passion. You go, well, I love to work out. Of course I don't. But I love to work out, but I'll never make money at that. Why? Or I love to do this, but that's more of a hobby. It's like, no, that's generally what you should be doing. And a lot of people are scared to be like, well, okay, I got to get this accounting job because then I can let me do my passion. That's like, man, it actually should be the other way and not be so scared to take that chance. But you got to get to the point where financially you're set, wisdom-wise you're set, and you have the right resources around you. You just got to be patient for that moment. And a lot of it doesn't come in your 20s.
Yeah.
Just be okay with that,
I don't even know if it's to say you're set. You just at least balanced. In my mind, that's how it's worked out. For me is, in my mind, it was one of those things where, okay, like there was a time where I didn't really necessarily like all the things that I did, but I found a job that I said, okay, I can live with this. Mm-hmm. It may not be my dream job, but it checks enough boxes and gives me enough freedom that I could say, it was the first time that I could, in my mind, I was okay with saying, I could retire doing this?
Yeah.
Because all of the boxes that were checked in, it allows me to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
You know,
Did you love trees as a young child?
Oh,
Were you a guy that looked at trees like, I want to knock
have you ever heard that backstory of how
wanna
he got
knock
into
this
that?
tree over?
no. So I looked at trees as my dad would walk through the woods and my grandpa, and they'd be like, well, this is a cherry tree. This is an oak tree. And I'm like, how the hell does every male over 40 years old know what every tree in the forest is?
Same thing. Yeah.
I was like, I don't understand this. Like, it's just some innate knowledge that just comes out when you hit 40 years old and you just know every single tree in the forest.
That was it? You didn't like look at trees and like, I want to punch you in the face.
No. I don't have a great story like that.
No.
No,
Your story's much better than what you just said.
my story was something like, so Hurricane Katrina hit when I was doing my undergrad at the College of Charleston in South Carolina. And I saw this stuff on the news, and I was like, I'm dropping out of college and I'm leaving. That's it. And so I remember I called my parents, and I was like, hey, I definitely already got some funding for this semester, but I'm going to go ahead and drop out. And that was a fun conversation. They were like, what? You paid this and you're leaving? And I'm like, yeah, I'm leaving. Like, you can't leave. And I was like, you can't tell me what I'm going to do because you didn't pay for my college.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do what I'm going to do because I know that I need to do this. Like, there haven't been too many other instances in life where I was like, yeah, I have to do this. It's not a question of, do I want to do this? It was just some, like, incredible pull that said, you need to do this. Mankind needs people to go down there and to help. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to help, but I'm going to listen to this calling, whatever it is. And so I called my buddy. We had a Jonathan and David kind of relationship. And I said, what are you doing, Dan? And he was like, well, you know, sitting here eating a peanut butter and jelly. I said, no.
Yeah,
I'm
at this moment.
not at this exact moment. What are you doing with your life? And he's like, well, I just got done at Charleston Southern, and I'm getting ready to go into Clemson. I'm going to do some writing. And I was like, yeah, that's not what you're going to do. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, you're going to get in your shitty 1989 Honda Accord. You're going to drive 3.5 hours from Greenville, South Carolina, down to Charleston, South Carolina. You're going to pick me up, and we're going to drive until we see the maximum amount of devastation, and then we're going to start helping people. And he was like, dude, that sounds crazy. He was like, I'll get back to you in 3 days. And I was like, okay. So I was like, if you're not coming, I'm still going. And he's like, no, I get that. Obviously, like it's Tony, it's you. You're gonna do what you're gonna do. And so he called me back in 3 days, and he was like, okay, let's go. And he's like, I'm gonna come down. I want to pick you up. And we took the back roads down to where we headed. Literally, I remember going through just crazy roads where it was like 2 hours. We wouldn't see any other vehicles. The most pitch black sky ever. It was absolutely beautiful. Stopped in this field in Florida called Southfield. It was like God just sprinkled these stars down, and it was super bright. We kept driving. We ended up in Gulfport, Mississippi. And they said this actually got hit harder than Louisiana. They said it got hit harder than Louisiana. And so we ended up at, I don't even remember where somehow, it was behind this church. And so we went and met with a pastor, and he was like, what do you guys want to do? And I was like, whatever you need. He's like, what can you do? I was like, everything. We know how to do everything. We have all skill sets.
Yeah.
Dude, we didn't know how to do anything. We could barely tie our shoes. We're
Nunchuck
college
skills,
kids. Yeah.
post-staff skills.
And so this church became this focal point where teams from all around the United States would come and park behind it with their campers or their tents or whatever they would bring. And each one of those teams had a skill set. You know, they were a demolition team, they were a chainsaw team, they were a construction team, HVAC team, electrical team, whatever. And so the church would get these phone calls, and people would say, hey, I need this or I need that. So they'd put together these work orders, and they would delegate these work orders to these different teams based on their skill set. And so we were just, you know, this ragtag bunch of college kids that didn't know anything. And so we would just jump on with these random teams, and we would just talk with them, and they'd be like, you guys just dropped out of college and came down here? We're like, yep. They're like, well, hop on with us. And so we hopped on with all these different teams, and we'd go and we'd do demolition. We'd go and do electrical work. We'd go and do, you know, whatever work. And eventually, somehow the trees found us. The trees found us because there was, maximum devastation down there. It was like toothpicks. There were boats up in the top of trees. It was crazy. And the pastor said, "Hey," he said, "you boys know how to run chainsaws?" And I was like, "I was born to run chainsaws." And Dan's like, "You ever run a chainsaw before?" I was like, "Once." Shh. And so he was like, "I'm going to buy you boys some MS-290 steel chainsaws." And I was like, "Okay, that sounds fantastic." And we ended up like cutting down trees. And knowing what I know now, by the grace of God, we're still alive.
He survived.
Like, dude, there's so many things that, like, there was literally one point when there was a tree that was like this, and it was bent over. And my buddy Dan shimmied out on this tree and started cutting it. And I was like, I'm not a physics major, but the roots still look attached. I was like, I've seen catapults and trebuchets before. Yeah. I think it's going to launch him into Louisiana. And dude, he was like halfway through it. And I was like, stop. Just started screaming. He's like, what? I was like, dude, get off. Get off. He gets off. I finished the cut. Dude, shirt off. Wah, 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 wah. Dude, it would have sent him to the next count. Like, so much stupid stuff that we shouldn't have been out there. But we kind of roughly learned how to cut trees while we were down there. And eventually we stayed down there for about 3 months. It was a wild story, man. Like,
it's cool.
I went down there with,
I never knew that.
Yeah, just no money in my account. Before I left, I talked with the dean of the college. This is a college, a state college. You got 12,000 kids. And she was like, "You're just going to drop out and go?" And I'm like, "Yep." She's like, "That's wild, Tony." She's like, pulls her wallet out, gave me some money. And she's like, "I wish you the best of luck."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a cool story.
Yeah, dude, it was wild, man. But yeah, we stayed down there for 3 months. Like, and I thought I was going down there to help those people. Those people helped me as much as I helped those people.
Yeah. Whoa. That's awesome. I mean, wow. What a cool story. I know, like, I was initially interested in, I didn't know you went to college in Charleston. That's like a...
CFC, baby. I was a cougar.
How did you even get there?
Oh, you want to hear that story?
I've been to Charleston a few times.
Yeah, I'll make it quick.
Yeah.
So I was with Jacob Dean, who's on the show, by the way. I actually told this story.
Yeah.
On there.
Oh yeah.
So he's a tax attorney. He's a Mormon.
Yeah.
The most clean cut family ever. Awesome. They play piano together, sing together. Beautiful family. His dad was our principal, and we were sitting in his basement, and there was a news article, and it said, "Hey, there's this park in this particular city, which was Charleston, and it was Francis Marion Park, and they said there's women sunbathing, causing traffic accidents.
That's all you need
because
to know.
the women are so fine." And I was like, what? College of Charleston? I was like, sold right there. And then I looked it up, and there was like 8 dudes to like 1 female ratio, or excuse me, 8 females. Yeah, that sounded. I won't say what it sounded like. Yeah, vice versa. Yeah. And I went. So I went. Yeah, I went. Yeah, I wish I would have had more money so I could have experienced the cuisine. And
that's what I was just gonna say. Like, I mean, not to be
low country
too
cuisine.
much on brand, but like, Sean Brock is like one of my favorite chefs, and he had all those restaurants. He's moved to Nashville, but my family always has gone to Myrtle Beach every year. My parents have a place down there, and so one day, me and my wife and our kids, and my sister and her husband, her kids. So, and then my parents, there's like 20 of us. We're stupid. And so they let us one day go away, and Charleston's like an hour and 40 minutes from there.
Yep.
And we always go to Charleston for the whole day, and it's like, it's such a cool town. I hate to like, just the what it is, and then the history of it. I'm not a huge history buff, but when you actually see things like, what's the island? The right across from
Sumter?
Park. Yeah. Fort Sumter. And you actually see like, okay, that's not really far away.
Not at all, man.
And then it's like, oh, these are all like where the generals lived on this road. Like it was like
you go down to the Battery and you've got the crazy houses that are
like you can kind of, and that's so.
There's cannons still out there.
And that's always one of those things that like when you see, old battlefields are just different things around the world, and you see how small they are. Like, and when I was in college, I went to Israel for a month. I went to this Christian school because and I loved it. My friends went there, but I was never going to be a pastor. So I get all my biblical studies things if I went to Israel for a month. I was like, sign me up. So, you go there and you find out like, okay, Jerusalem's like the size of like the north end of Worcester. It is like excruciatingly small. And it's so weird to see like all these historical events, and there's all of this history in this one weird circle that's built up off the ground. This, the gated area of Jerusalem. And similar like Charleston, like you see the history of like the Civil War and you're like, bro, this really happened here.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, you could shoot a cannon over there and they could shoot one back.
And they did.
And it was, that's when I'm not a huge history buff, but when I get to see it, it's like, and you see like the reality of like, you're like, whoa.
Makes it palpable.
It's real. Like, and the houses, those like bullet houses that are like 10 foot wide and 60 foot long. And,
Yeah, because of property taxes.
Yeah.
They tax them by the...
or shotgun, not bullet. I used the wrong term. Shotgun houses.
Have you ever been down to Gatlinburg?
Yes.
Have you taken any of those tours or anything, or like gone up on like the hillside where the Confederacy was, or the?
We haven't yet. Like so. My name's Matt. My wife's name starts with an M, and then all three of my kids start with an M. So we made this really weird proclamation when we got married that we were going to take a family vacation to every state that started with an M, over time. But on the years that we don't take a vacation there, we go to Gatlinburg. Our kids freaking love it. But they love it for like the Dollywood part.
True.
I love that area. I've actually looked at like buying land down there and like developing it because land's cheap in like, was it Sevierville?
Sevierville, yeah.
Yeah. And it's beautiful down there. And they have like not very strict building codes. And
Yeah.
hunting is easy down there.
I don't think the property taxes are terrible either.
Oh, it's super cheap. And they don't have any state income tax. So I was like, or very low state income tax. So I was like, ooh, if I build a cabin down there now and then like Airbnb'd it for like 15 years and then retired down there.
All right.
Because, I mean, it gives you a little bit of the winter, but not too much. And you get the really extended, really nice summer. But anyway, I love Tennessee. I love like Gatlinburg and what's the other one? Pigeon Forge, that whole
It's all. Well, that's the thing. Like that whole area. You're talking about the wars and like when you throw the Civil War into that and you realize where some of those forces came through, like Tennessee and Virginia, like and ended up in like Gettysburg, like and realize some of the
and they walked.
Yeah, they
Trying
walked
to get those shoes.
Yeah, like it took months and months, and like that's how these things happen. And like I remember, speaking of just Gettysburg, I went down to Gettysburg once for a work thing, and like they did like a kind of a weird conferencing where you leadership and all those things. But like to take the tour of Gettysburg and standing in some of the places where this, and you have some of those tour guides down there, they're in it to win.
Oh yeah.
They are like really full throttle, and they like kind of describe, hey, this is what happened here and here. And you stand on some of the points and it's like, oh, it really, like you said, like,
the size of a football field, like how many thousand people died.
Yeah.
It just had to be just a ridiculous amount of carnage. And that's just crazy. Like, yeah, all that stuff is, I love history in the way of like the reality of, everybody I think wants to go to Normandy Beach. I think everybody wants to do like the whole, like those like stations of war because it's so interesting to me. It just feels like, 70, 80 some years ago, it's like all the stuff happened. It's like, that's not that all long ago. And like,
that's a very short time.
And then when they tell you like, what was it like with the D-Day thing, like some crazy number of people died in the practice runs of it. It was they had like,
even before they ever got to the beach,
like they would just do it on like another beach and like all these people died and like, all right, whatever. Like the idea that like we would do any of that stuff now or they had to do it. So it wasn't like this is a cool idea. Let's storm a beach. It's like kind of the future of the world depends on it. And so, yeah, it's like the history stuff is when you see it in real life. And I just have had an affinity with Charleston. Not that there was a conversation, but it's so cool. I love Southern towns. I went to college in Virginia, and the Savannahs, the Charlestons.
Oh, yeah, it's low country, baby. Everything's a little bit slower. Get some grits, some sweet tea, some boiled peanuts.
Those big trees that sweep down
got
and cover
the Spanish
the
moss.
Yeah,
live oaks.
It's really, it's a really cool place. I have pictures of my wife was really pregnant with our second. Like, and we were there in August, and it was like 107, and we were like hoofing it, and she's like pink in the face, sweating, like guzzling water, and I was like, "You're a soldier for this." And she's like, "Oh, this is really cool." I was like, "Man, I was struggling, and I didn't have a baby, but Charleston's a cool place. We went on a bunch of tours, and carriage ride stuff, all that cool, kitschy stuff.
Yeah, there's something special about experiencing things that not only you're not used to, but in a different time frame.
Yeah.
That in trying to put yourself in that and going, these are what these people went through.
Yeah.
I think I talk about it a lot, and I maybe too much. Maybe it's a dead horse at this point, but it's something that a lot of people, and myself included, we can't fully grasp the struggles that not only what people go through around the world today, but the same people that have been here 50, 60 years ago. Like, we're living in a completely different dimension than. It's like, why are we all so mad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we are living in literally the best time to be alive.
Oh, yeah.
Period.
Yeah. And it seems like it is always that case. And I just, what you were saying, I always joke, like, if you've ever been to San Diego and like Coronado Island, which is right off San Diego, they have like the first Coronado hotel is like the first hotel with electricity on the West Coast. So like Thomas Edison put the stuff in. It's this ridiculous, huge resort, but its property line butts up against like, and I'm not a military guy, but I don't know if they're Green Berets or like Special Forces, like their training ground.
It's got to be the SEALs if it's Coronado.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's dudes.
There's a lot of Navy out there.
It's just
No,
it's just bad
yeah,
dudes, and it's always
really
funny.
buds.
And they do their drills and stuff, and you're like, for everybody, it's like, oh yeah, I'd be great in the army. I wish I'd have served. I was like, and I look at them like, no, like these dudes are carrying logs in the ocean and almost drowning like on a Tuesday morning.
Literally,
like no,
almost drowning.
You're not built for that.
That was my old man. So he was underwater demolition, and he went and trained in Coronado.
And they do. It's really cool if you ever get to go to San Diego. Like go to Coronado and just sit there because they got helicopters going back and forth. They drill. They have their big ships coming kind of in and out. But then on the beach, and I don't know who they are. They're drilling, and it's not like basic training stuff. It's like it's the still most, and they have like this line. It's like you can't cross it, and then people just put chairs, and usually you put your chair that faces the ocean, and they put their chairs facing. And they're just eating like chips and salsa, watching these guys almost pass out.
Poor bastards.
I know,
Almost died,
but
yeah.
it is the most
Picante.
intense thing.
Yeah.
I've seen it a lot, and they had this thing where they did literally looked like electrical pole, and they all had it like.
Oh yeah,
it was like six of them.
Pick up your coupons.
It was like 6 of them on it, and they had them like under their arms, and they like went it in the ocean, and they were doing some drill with it, and the waves are knocking your feet out from under you, and you're like, I am not built for that, but it was really cool to see, and you see all like the drilling they do with they're jumping out of the helicopters and stuff. It's crazy. Makes you feel super safe. Like those dudes are doing it. Like I'm good.
I would say super safe and.
They should have a tip jar, like at the rope. Just be like,
Yeah, they don't get.
Here you go for your
that.
freedom, guys.
Yeah.
Like if you want to give a couple extra bucks for your freedom to these guys,
You get your brown shirt and some tips.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's like that just makes me feel super inadequate because I look at the same way. I'm like, no, it's not me.
yeah.
No.
I'm like, more power to you, buddy.
Yeah,
Let me know when you need a mortgage.
yeah. I really.
I'll solve that problem for you. You keep the border safe. I'll get you a little rate.
I'll keep you. I'll get you a house.
Yeah, no, man. That's a wild place, and that's being able to travel a little bit. I haven't traveled a ton, comparatively speaking to a lot of people I know, but that really helps you like get out of your rut, and that's one of the things I wish I'd have met my wife like 3 years earlier, and then not had kids for an extra 2 years, and then spent like more time. Just even in like not like, hey, let's go to Italy and eat pizza. Like we should have like really thought about even in the United States. And that's one of the things with my kids I really want to try. They're too young now, but when they get older, especially with those M-state trips, like, but also like take them to San Francisco, like make them uncomfortable, not unsafe, but like, yeah, people are kind of weird sometimes. Or take them to like New Orleans and have them understand like all of those cultures that met in one little weird town. Because I feel like that's going to help them accept other people better and not have to wait so long to figure out like, okay, different isn't bad, different is different. And I think the only way a lot of the ways you can do that is just by letting them in the small ways experience those different places. And that's that's a passion for me as my kids get older. Like I want to take them to DC when they're old enough to be like see stuff and take them to Montana and like and all of those those weird places in our country, because you don't have to go to like Egypt to see like a lot of culture, and then you could go to Dearborn, Michigan. It's basically an Arab town. Like you could give them a lot of culture that way. So that's a big thing for me, for Maria and I too. Just as like, hey, let's not unsafe, but like, I'm not just gonna take you to the beach every summer so you can be like, oh, this is fun.
Expose you to something different.
Yeah, like here's weird food. Like this is spicy. This is weird. Like, and that's my hope for them. Is at least they have the understanding of the perspective that man, there's a lot of different places just in this country.
Yeah. So. I think that's super awesome and incredible. I think, we've kind of talked about doing the same thing. Obviously, last year the travel thing was a little, non-existent. But we have talked to, my wife and want to do the same thing with the kids, like exposing her to different things. Like, we want to go down to the Serpent Mounds near Cincinnati.
Okay.
And just like, because that's like talk about history. Like that's real. That's way back there, and it's not just, we want to go do different things, but also too, it's like, hey, there's layers of history and people that have been here and all these different things. And, we want to, I've been in New York City a ton. Mm-hmm. So like New York City, Mike, you literally, you can get a little bit of everything within a 10-minute walking distance, depending on where you're at, like those things, just to realizing that like, there's so much out there and there's so much to appreciate out there. Like it's,
And that, I think that's like every generation, of course, always evolves a little bit more. And I think that's one of the things that we can do is like, we're all connected even more, but it's also tough to be like, you got to break out of the like, oh yeah, I know a lot about Japan. There's a YouTube video I can watch about Japan. Or I know all about like, the Pacific Northwest. And it's like, yeah. And then I always thought that. And then my wife and I went on a cruise to Alaska and stayed in Seattle for a couple of days and then went all the way up to Alaska. And I was like, oh, I didn't understand this at all. Like, this is nuts. Like, when you see a glacier like that right there, you're like, oh, this is a different game than what you see on Discovery Channel. And, like, our kids are just getting to the age where we can give them that stuff. But, man, that's to see, like, the world, that is just going to give them a more well-rounded idea of other people. And that's all you can do. I mean, I got, like, my in-laws are great parents and they got some screwball kids, and sometimes it's just whatever, like, but it's not your fault if they're great and it's not your fault if they're good or bad. But I just want them to have like an opportunity to see like other people and not have a judgmental eye to it and just be like, oh, that's what they do. But that's not what I do. And so, yeah, that's a big goal of me. I love travel. Like last year when pandemic, I was on the road. I didn't give a crap. I was not wearing a mask. I stopped traveling from basically the end of March through like June 1st. And then I was on the road the rest of the year. And so it was lonely. And like sometimes like nothing was open, but and hotels, like, they wrapped your remote in a Ziploc bag, so you couldn't touch the remote. Yeah. And then I was like, everybody's just going to open the Ziploc bag and take the remote out. But that was the thing that they used to do, or they would, if you ordered room service, they'd like sit it at your door, knock on your door and run away. So you didn't come in contact with them. It's like
slid it through.
Yeah. It was like a prison.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, but,
eat your porridge.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's a big world. It's a big country, man. And so I'm down to figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
Different isn't bad. Different is different.
Yeah.
I like that, Channy, a lot.
I do.
It's tough to understand, or it's tough to continue, because we always try to have a frame of reference for everything, because that makes us order our life. But sometimes you're just like, I don't get you. I think you're weird, but I don't care.
Right.
And I think we can teach our kids that. Like, I don't understand what you are, but that doesn't mean my life changes because I don't understand it. Then debate happens because I'm not trying to change you, and maybe you're not trying to change me, but I'm trying to understand you, and you can try to understand me.
you. Yeah, understand each other a little bit better. I mean, that's why
That pulls you to the middle instead of pushes you to the outside.
it goes back to Dan and me talking about like like purposely surround myself with characters. Then there's a reason I work in a jail. There's a reason I work around addicts. Like, I like characters because they're very, very different, and I try to understand people that aren't like me.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're more like me than I think they are once I fully understand them.
Yeah, and they maybe just didn't have a dad. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things like in our company. You know, we have an office here. I have an office in Dublin, which is outside Columbus, and an office in Lynchburg, Virginia, and an office in New Lexington, Ohio, which is in the middle of nowhere. But in the office outside of Columbus, I have employees there, and they're just different. And a lot of them, you know, as you learn, it's like, you know, actually they had maybe a bad upbringing or just a not, you know. I have two great parents. I was lucky. Like, my parents, good, they're around. If I was like, Dad, I'm broke, he'd give me money. Like, and my mom would do my laundry. You know, I just had that advantage. And like one of my employees, like, they just didn't. And like, they're taking care of their parents. And then some people are like, wow, he's really abrasive, or she's really abrasive. And you're like, you know, that's their life. Like, they're taking care of a lot more than they really need to be.
Yeah.
And they probably have been since they were a teenager, and they had to pretty much figure it out. So they're like a feral cat. Like, they're surviving. They're finding food wherever they can.
Yep.
And when you bring them in the house, the feral cat might like you. And then 1 minute runs up the drapes and scratches you. And it's like, a lot of that is luck of the draw or not unluck of the draw. And as I get older, I learned that a lot of that stuff is like, that guy's a jerk. It's like, why? Because most people aren't just a jerk for sake of it. It's either a defense mechanism or something that they figured out that works. And a lot of times you can get past that with like understanding where they're from or what happened to them. Or some people are just jerks and you just write them off and that's who they are. But yeah, interesting stuff.
Sounds like being chronically curious helps you to understand people.
I'm a little disappointed. I thought the Chronic was going to play a more bigger role than the curious side of things. I thought we were going to get smoked up in here.
No, I mean, we could have pulled the Elon, but
yeah, no, it's.
I don't do that either, but I just said it.
No, I'm just joking, shit.
Yeah, well, the Chronic is more of an adjective, than a noun. And chronic curiosity,
just nonstop curious.
Yeah, well, I guess
instead of
it's
nonstop token.
Yeah, it's a.
Well, if like the O was a weed leaf, then I'd be worried.
Yeah, no, the Chronic is definitely more of an adjective than a noun. I would think that's right? An adjective than a noun, where we are, at least
descriptor of how curious we are.
Yeah, it's something I can't avoid.
Maybe more curious when we smoke the Chronic.
It's a constant thing.
That's when we get to the ancient aliens.
Yeah, yeah. I could talk about aliens all day long, but that's a whole different whole different well.
That's something I need to learn more about. I mean, I laugh at like the Bob Lazar stuff, and like it's that I know of, and just as him as like a mouthpiece, but like that stuff, it's hard to. I don't know. That's where my mind struggles to stretch to those areas.
Oh, I got so we can wrap this up here a little bit. But I will say, if you're a podcast listener or a generally curious type of person, some of my most favorite people about, and that's not necessarily aliens, but have you ever heard of Graham Hancock?
No.
So he's an Egypt kind of person. He's not an Egyptologist, but he's like an author,
like the pyramids and stuff.
Yeah. So real quick. So Egypt, by normal standards, by expert standards, is thought to be 8,000, 6,000 years old. The pyramids and whatnot. Him and people along with Randall Carlson. I always forget these other two guys' names, which are the really big ones. But the one guy did a series that's called Magical Egypt. He's an older guy, and he's passed away now. but they basically have not proved, but that
Terrible name for a show.
yeah, it's yeah, but it's old school.
I just think magical.
Yeah, it's old. Yeah, it's old school.
Just throw some sand.
Yeah, no,
and
it
then
does. Like if you watch it, it's very much that.
The face of the Sphinx just opens up.
Yeah, but it's
The weathered nose.
But when you hear him talk about, and it's going back to understanding the underlying, aspects of what they're talking about. That civilization could. They have arguments for civilization is much older than 12,000 years old, like collective civilization, which breaks all the norms that experts agree. So you tie that in with the theory of aliens, like Bob Lazar, and Commander David Fravor. Have you ever heard his account?
Is that the pilot?
It's the Navy pilot. Yeah. He was an officer, and saw the Tic Tac thing.
Yeah.
He has a really good discussion with Lex Friedman as well. But you add all these things together, and it made me really curious to go, okay, so we have theoretically the argument sounds good that civilization was constructed well before we consider it has been. And now it's really being opened up with Göbekli Tepe. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
The ancient city.
It's like an ancient structure that has been dated back to post 12,000 years.
Was that City of Gold and National Treasure with the Nick Cage movie?
No.
Close.
Yeah.
Close.
So this.
Oh, okay.
So this. It's a.
It was like in the Statue of Liberty. There was a hint. Or whatever.
Yeah.
It's probably there. We just gotta
It
find
probably. But I will say, if you have an interest in some of that stuff, it's really interesting. But this city has been like they've been it's not necessarily a city, but it's these structures that have been built 12,000 plus years that was intentionally buried.
By aliens.
I don't know if it's by aliens, but I feed it. I think, okay, well, maybe if you tied it in the ancient aliens thing, maybe it's not really ancient aliens. It's just these highly intelligent civilizations that have lived before us and gotten destroyed.
Yeah.
And they knew it was coming, so they, whatever. There's a lot of different theories into it.
They got out of town.
Yeah. You never know.
Now they're coming back because the rent's due, right?
Maybe.
No, they got COVID protection. They're good.
But if
they got their vaccine?
Can
you travel interstellarly without a vaccine? Is that
absolutely
14
not.
days on? You got to
Absolutely
stay
not.
14 days
you
on
need your
Mars
passport for that.
Joey B is going to shut that down. He's going to sign an executive order soon.
My point is there's some logical explanations if you're willing to have an imagination for the unexplained. That's all I mean.
I like that.
That's very good. Logical, unexplained.
There's logical explanations for the unexplained.
Unexplained. There you go.
Yeah, I get to word it properly. Make me sound like a fucking crazy.
Old Alex Jones.
There's
over
deep,
here.
shallow pools too, right?
Fine. If that's how it's going to be. That's how we're going to
Here comes quantum physics.
Yeah.
I would love to have I'd love to know more about that stuff because that's definitely something I don't know a lot about. I actually do have to really pee really bad because I'm mowing down these walls.
Yeah, no, we can if you but look, say Graham Hancock and Randall Carson were on Joe Rogan. You've mentioned Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
So Graham Hancock and Randall Carson, they have some really interesting. They're not alien. It's more of a destruction and revitalization,
great flood, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but like scientific type explanations for it. So,
Channing, appreciate you coming on, brother.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
And we ended it with aliens. How about that?
On brand.
On brand. Yeah. Thank you, man.
Thanks, brother.
All right.
Thank you for hanging out with us on this episode.
Appreciated as always. And if you have any questions, comments, ideas, or guest suggestions, leave them in the comments after you subscribe to the channel or visit chroniccuriosity.com to get in contact with us.
And the store, which you can pick yourself up some fantastically curious merchandise.
Until next time. That's it.